A dark god lost in the emptiness of time grew tired of his endless existence. To entertain himself, he created a cruel game and called it Prison Day. No one chose to play this game. Souls were pulled into it without warning and thrown into a maze of dangerous dungeons, with each one harder to survive than the one before. For those who failed, the price was terrible. Their souls would be trapped inside the game forever with no way to escape. But even in this hopeless place, the players held on to a single belief. They thought that if they could beat the final boss and earn a special S-rank card, they would win their freedom. Many tried and many dreams were broken. After all the destruction, only one person managed to survive the terrible game. He was the only one left. This lone survivor had fought with everything he had. He believed that by getting stronger and clearing dungeons, he could get back everything he had lost. But his long journey did not end in freedom. Instead, he became a god himself. Becoming a god brought him no happiness at all. An unhappy look spread across his face as he refused his new power. He had no interest in joining the other dark gods who ruled the cosmos. A mysterious being saw his refusal and made him an offer. It tempted him with endless life and great power, suggesting they could rule together. The being's voice was filled with doubt. It could not believe that he would truly give up the amazing power and eternal life that was now his for the taking. With great sadness, the young man Tokia refused once more. He explained that he had done everything right, had become the strongest, but in the end he had lost everyone he cared about, his mother, his friends, and the girl he loved. Painful memories flooded his mind. He saw the faces of all the people he held dear, remembering how the cruel game had taken every single one of them away from him. The dark god then spoke to the survivor, using his full name, Kurasu Tokia. It asked him one last question about what his final wish would be. With a steady voice, the young man shared his one true wish. All he wanted was a simple, normal life where he could be with the people he loved, safe and together. A warm memory came back to him. He remembered the feeling of her hand in his and her happy voice asking him out on a date. It was a perfect piece of the normal life he missed so much. This memory filled him with a sudden rage. He shouted at the dark being, blaming it for destroying everything he loved. He swore he would destroy this horrible world and its painful history completely. As he spoke, a blindingly bright light burst from his open hand. The light gathered together, taking the shape of a shining golden card. He told the dark god to stop its useless threats. The power he held in this card was something the god could never understand or control. With a serious look, Tokia revealed his secret weapon. It was the time reversal card, a card with the power to change the past, wipe everyone's memories, and give him another chance. The dark being pulled back in shock. It could not believe what it was seeing. It wondered how a simple human could have possibly found such a powerful and impossible item. As it faded away, the being seemed more curious than angry. It whispered that this was interesting and that it hoped they would meet again, before disappearing completely. A bright golden light wrapped around Tokia. The time reversal card began to hum with energy as its incredible power was finally unleashed. Time itself started to bend and break around him. In that moment, Tokia made a promise to himself. He would come back, he would be ready, and this time he would not let anyone take away the people he loved. In an instant, his eyes flew open. He was awake, and he knew in that moment that the impossible had actually happened. He sat up with a start, finding himself in a clean, white hospital bed. He felt confused and dizzy as he tried to make sense of his blurry surroundings. His eyes moved quickly around the room, which felt both strange and familiar. A confused look was on his face as he tried to understand that his journey to the past was real. He looked down at his hands. They were young and had no scars. Seeing them was all the proof he needed. He really had gone back in time. As he looked closer at the room, he started to recognize things. A thought crossed his mind, mixed with a little doubt. He wondered if this was really Midorasaki City Hospital. At that moment, the door opened quietly. His mother walked in, a worried look on her face. She gently asked if he had been having another bad dream. A kind smile appeared on her face as she came closer to his bed. Her presence was calming. She whispered softly that she was there and that he didn't need to worry anymore. Tokia stared at her, completely stunned. Seeing his mother standing there, alive and well, was almost too much to believe. He could only whisper her name, his voice thick with emotion. He could never forget what happened in the other timeline. Her mind had been stolen by the game, leaving her body empty and unable to wake up, like she was in a deep sleep she could never escape. A rush of feelings washed over the young man. He pulled his mother into a tight hug, his eyes filling with tears. He told her just how much he had missed her. His mother was confused by his strong hug. She gently pulled away, her face filled with concern. She worried that his sickness might be getting worse. The truth was, Kurasu Tokia had spent much of his life in hospitals. Since he was a child, he suffered from a serious illness that made him feel disconnected from reality. Inside his mind, it often felt like many different voices were speaking at once. No one ever believed him when he tried to explain, which made him feel very alone. His illness had kept him from having a normal life, but this quiet, simple routine in the hospital was exactly the kind of peace he had been fighting for. But a small digital clock on the table showed the time, 5:26 p.m. It was a sharp reminder that his peace would not last. Time was running out all over again. He remembered with a sudden panic that prison day started at 6:00 in the evening. That meant he only had 34 minutes of freedom left. Very soon, his mind would be pulled from his body and into the game. If he lost this time, his body would fall into a deep sleep from which he would never wake up. He knew that every new player was sent to the easiest dungeons first. He quickly looked for a pen and paper, trying to write down every secret and every strategy he could remember from his past life. The first few dungeons were easy, but only if a person knew the hidden rules. He promised himself he would write down everything he needed to in just 10 minutes. He had to write clearly and simply so his mother could understand it and have a better chance to survive. These notes would also be a lifeline for his friend Keita. His mother, still worried but not knowing the real danger, told him not to work too hard. She said she was just stepping out for a moment to take out the trash. As he watched her walk out the door, a sad but important thought came to him. Unlike his father, his mother had never, ever left his side. His memory of his father was a painful one. The man had wasted all of the family's money and then just left, leaving him and his mother to struggle on their own. His mother had faced so many struggles to raise him all by herself. It was only now, looking back, that he truly understood. The most precious thing in his life had been with him the whole time. Suddenly, the door to his hospital room creaked open, and another person walked inside. A boy carrying a bag of snacks walked in. It was his childhood friend Keita. Seeing him again after so long, Tokia felt a mix of emotions and quietly said that it had been a long time. Keita looked confused. He reminded Tokia that they had just seen each other 3 days ago. This was Janouchi Keita, the best and oldest friend he had in the world. Ever since they were children, Keita had always protected him. He was the only one who stood up for him when other kids made fun of him for his illness. In the future that he had left behind, Keita had died while trying to save him. Tokia made a silent, powerful promise that he would never let that happen again. Back in the hospital room, Keita leaned over to see what his friend was doing. He asked what Tokia was writing so fast. Tokia gave a short answer, telling him it was a guide on how to win a game. Keita looked worried. He asked if playing games was a good idea, afraid it might make his sickness worse. But Tokia's expression was firm as he insisted that he had to do it. Not understanding what was really at stake, Keita just nodded. He figured it must be a very special game to make his friend act with such a serious look on his face. Tokia quickly pushed the notebooks he had been writing in into Keita's hands. He told him to read one and to give the other one to his mother. Keita just stood there, completely confused. Tokia's voice was filled with urgency. He told his friend to read the notebook and remember as much as he could, promising that it would help him later on. Keita thought his friend was acting very strange, but he nodded anyway. He took the notebooks from Tokia without asking any more questions. In that moment, Tokia's determination became stronger than ever. To keep his loved ones safe, he knew what he had to do. He had to beat every dungeon, find every card, and become the most powerful player all over again. The main idea of the game was simple. When players defeated monsters, they were given cards. These cards could be powerful weapons, helpful items, or special skills that gave them amazing powers. The rarest cards of all were the 15 S-rank cards. They were so powerful that not even the dark gods could change what they did. The time reversal card was one of these legendary items. With a fire in his heart, Tokia knew his new goal. He would collect all 15 of the S-rank cards. With their power, he would finally be able to defeat the dark gods for good. The numbers on the digital clock kept changing, getting closer and closer to 6:00. The game was about to begin. His eyes darted back and forth between the ticking clock and a picture in a frame on his table. There was no more time. Prison day was here. The picture showed a happy moment of him with his mother and Keita, all smiling. In just 1 minute, this peaceful life he treasured so much would be gone. A message suddenly appeared in front of his eyes, as if on a screen. The cold, digital words told him that he had been chosen to be a player in the first group. At the same time, the happy faces in the photograph on his table began to flicker and distort, as if the world itself was starting to come apart. In that exact second, his body started to break apart into tiny, shining pieces of light. His soul was being pulled out of his world and into the world of the game. An invisible force, the game system, began to put all of his old memories from the first timeline back into his mind. Now inside the cold, digital world of the game, Tokia felt more determined than ever. He knew that this time he would protect them all. He would become the strongest player without a doubt. A fiery anger burned in his eyes. It was a silent promise to defeat the proud god that had treated their lives like a simple game. In front of him, a message appeared out of thin air. It read, "Welcome to Prison Day, enjoy your game." The system whirred to life, loading the data for its newest player, Kurasu Tokia. With his profile active, the inaugural E-Class dungeon materialized, the familiar yet sinister Office of Dies. A crucial step followed. The system attempted to purge Tokia's real-world memories, yet for reasons unknown, the process repeatedly failed. As the final boss generation completed, a chilling realization washed over the young man. This new reality, this digital dungeon, mirrored his past life with unnerving precision. Tokia stood amidst fluorescent lights and cubicles, trapped within a dungeon that was an unsettling replica of a mundane, real-world office. He knew the rules, other players had their pasts erased, but for some inexplicable reason, his own memories, vivid and sharp, remained perfectly intact. Armed with foreknowledge, Tokia steeled himself. He knew precisely what horrors awaited within this opening E-Class dungeon. The Office of Dies, indeed. Around him, oblivious to the encroaching danger, several figures sat hunched over their desks, performing their mundane tasks. Clearing this low-level threat wouldn't be simple. 3 distinct bosses, each wielding unique abilities, stood between him and victory. Without a moment's hesitation, Tokia commanded the system, and a familiar blue status panel flickered into existence before him. His player information, vital and detailed, now lay exposed on the screen. A quick scan confirmed his fears. Everything had been reset. Defeating the 3 bosses in his current state was a near impossibility. His immediate priority became clear. He needed to raise his skills fast. His gaze drifted to a curious entry, an unidentifiable blessing. He wondered if this enigmatic power was somehow linked to the memories of his past life that the system had failed to erase. Regardless, a skill card was paramount to overcoming this stage. To even face a single boss, Tokia began to strategize his next move. A sudden flash of insight, a crucial memory from his past life, illuminated his mind. He remembered something vital about this particular dungeon. A hidden side quest. If he could complete it and acquire a skill card, victory wouldn't be nearly as challenging. 10 minutes remained before the main mission began. Tokia rose, determination hardening his features. There was still time to act. As he rushed through the sterile office, his thoughts drifted to a voice he'd known since childhood, a voice that had grown strikingly clearer since his rebirth into this world. These ethereal voices spoke of a grand destiny, saving Earth. To achieve victory against a dark god, they insisted their powers must merge with his. A flicker of confusion crossed his face. Could he truly obtain a power, a true strength, separate from the coveted S-rank cards? His hurried steps finally halted before a nondescript men's restroom door, his destination. The mystery of the voices would have to wait. With a singular focus on the side quest, Tokia pushed open the door and stepped inside. He scanned the small room, confirming this was indeed the spot. His first task, to unlock the hidden treasure chest. Just then, a system notification flashed, confirming his arrival at a hidden location and the initiation of the side quest. A familiar blue screen appeared, proudly displaying the mission's title, The Secret Hidden in the Men's Restroom. Wasting no precious seconds, Tokia kicked open a stall door with a resounding crash, yelling his intent to clear this quest at top speed. Within the stall, a small blue-horned creature perched atop a chest, jumped in alarm at the sudden, violent intrusion. The system identified it, a cowardly ogre, a mere urban legend, now startlingly real and guarding the treasure. The tiny monster attempted a show of bravado, puffing itself up and letting out a surprisingly fierce growl, hoping to intimidate the young man. But Tokia's eyes glowed crimson and his voice cut through the air. "Get out of the way, ogre, or else," he roared. The miniature beast visibly shrank, fear replacing its bravado, its eyes welling up as if on the verge of tears. With a terrified shriek, the small blue creature scrambled from its perch, leaping away from Tokia in a blur of fear. A system notification instantly popped up. Cowardly ogre defeated, treasure chest secured. Tokia scoffed, such a weakling guarding a treasure. It had fled the moment he'd raised his voice. Yet the system chimed in. Chest contains reward but cannot be opened without a key. Unfazed, Tokia simply lifted his foot and stomped down, shattering the wooden chest into splinters. The system almost mechanically announced, "Player has successfully broken the treasure chest." He smirked. So many players were fooled by the supposed key requirement, missing this simple bypass. A true newbie perhaps would simply break it and claim the prize. The system promptly listed his spoils: acquired, Vigor card E-Class, Speed card E-Class, Power card E-Class. Holding the 3 basic skill cards, Tokia declared, "With these I can finally activate my player status." He activated the cards, and a faint green aura enveloped him as his skills surged, leveling up. The system confirmed Speed, Power, and Vigor increased to level 1, max level 5. A confident smile touched his lips. The effect was minor perhaps, but undeniably clear. Now he was ready to face the three bosses. His status panel updated, proudly displaying his basic skills at level 1, positioned right beside that mysterious, unidentifiable blessing. Activating these cards had transformed him into a formal player. Even at level 1, he was already far beyond the capabilities of any normal human. To test his newfound strength, Tokia delivered a sharp punch to the restroom wall, which instantly cracked under the impact. The mirror above the sink, unable to withstand the reverberating force, shattered into 1,000 gleaming pieces. With these enhanced stats and the invaluable experience from his past life, he mused, clearing this dungeon should be a breeze. Yet he knew defeating the gods and protecting the entire world remained a distant, monumental goal. He vowed then and there, he would use every tool at his disposal, including any power granted by the enigmatic owner of that voice. His gaze returned to the system screen, specifically to the unidentifiable blessing. He needed to understand it better. "Hey system," he shouted, "did the owner of that voice give me this strange blessing?" A smirk played on his lips. "Just kidding," he muttered, "I didn't expect an answer anyway." Suddenly, a profound, mysterious voice echoed directly within his mind, declaring, "From this moment forward, everything depends on you." In that same instant, dark, sinister silhouettes began to coalesce, swirling ominously around our hero within the confines of the restroom. The shadows coiled, then completely engulfed him, pulling him inexorably into a dark, unknown void. Utterly confused, Tokia found himself adrift, floating in an endless void. Unable to comprehend the bizarre shift in reality, the voice continued its pronouncement. "We are always watching you from somewhere beyond." "Who are you?" he demanded, his voice echoing in the emptiness. "Why are you helping me with this blessing, and what are your true motives?" The entity replied with an unsettling calm. "First, you must prove your worth. Our help was merely a whim." Abruptly, he was back in the shattered restroom, and the voice chimed in with a stark warning. "The battle is about to begin. Hurry." With a determined gaze, Tokia affirmed, "I want your power, and I will undoubtedly prove my strength." A final system notification blared. Countdown over. Boss generated. Raid mode initiated. The screen flashed a grim welcome to Prison Day, announcing the true challenge within the Office of Demise dungeon was now beginning. A stark warning appeared. Anyone not in position will fail the raid. Time limit 59 seconds. Tokia ran with great confidence. He had a speed card and felt sure he would make it on time. Time was running out. With only 18 seconds left, he rushed through the confusing office halls, moving quickly to beat the clock. Two large men blocked his way to the front door. They looked angry and yelled that they had no time for games. Tokia was annoyed. He thought it was foolish how some people did not understand how serious the situation was. When the timer hit 0, everything went quiet. The two men who blocked the door disappeared in a bright light. They were out of the game. The other players watched in shock. They suddenly understood this was not just a game, but a fight for their lives. Tokia stayed calm and looked straight ahead. He said plainly that if you break the rules, you are finished. A large red gate started to come down from the ceiling. Its red light showed the fear in the players' eyes as they panicked. A message appeared in the air. It warned them that a boss was coming soon and a fight with E-rank monsters would start. As everyone panicked, dark shapes started to form in the shadows. It was the first boss and its ugly helpers. But Tokia was expecting this. He knew they had to defeat every boss to get through the dungeon. The first boss appeared with a strange scream. It looked like a creepy janitor and announced it was time to take out the trash. A notice showed the details of the boss. It was an E-rank scavenger with an iron broom and a very sharp dustpan. Its helpers were called cleaner E-rank monsters. They were weaker and had simpler weapons than their leader. One player in the crowd laughed at the monsters. He said they were only E-rank and not a real threat. A big man next to him agreed loudly. He bragged that he could beat the weak monsters with just a few punches. Tokia interrupted them with a serious warning. He told them to stay calm and not be arrogant because the monsters were stronger than they looked. He knew that even at level 1, these creatures were too strong for normal people. Trying to fight them with pure strength was a deadly mistake. The big man got angry. He yelled at Tokia to shut up, saying he had no right to talk since he almost did not make it in time. He smiled a mean smile. He said he would attack first to become the top-ranked player. He was already daydreaming about being a billionaire with fancy cars, big houses, and women. He mumbled to himself about high risk and high reward. He yelled and ran towards the monster with his fists ready. He shouted that the monster would help him get rich. But the boss was surprisingly fast. It blocked the attack with its iron broom, which glowed with a strange green light. The big man was thrown through the air and hit the ground hard. The other players watched, terrified. The boss laughed and said its cleaning shift was starting. Its ugly helpers moved toward the scared and frozen players. The boss laughed again and shouted that all the trash needed to be sanitized. Players screamed for help, but no one could hear them over the noise. In the middle of the chaos, Tokia stayed very calm. His body was tense and he was ready to move. He quickly jumped at one of the helpers. He hit it with a strong punch, sending the creature flying backward. The helper landed with a wet sound and immediately disappeared in a flash of green light, showing it was defeated. Tokia said with determination that the boss had to be defeated to win the game. He needed to get stronger and get an S-rank card. The other players were amazed. They were surprised to see someone fighting back, especially after the big man was defeated so easily. But one of the defeated helpers started to get up again. It growled that it had to keep cleaning the trash. Tokia grabbed a nearby broom. He attacked the rising monster with a powerful, glowing strike, moving smoothly and effectively. The helper vanished into sparkling light. A bright red card appeared where it had been, a reward for his quick work. He explained while looking at the card that the reward notice only shows up if you land the last hit. Otherwise, you have to find it yourself. The players watched in disbelief. They wondered who this young man was, as he was much stronger than the confident man from before. Tokia thought to himself that even at a low level, beating these monsters could give him one of 3 important cards. Right away, Tokia decided to use the power card he had just gotten from the fight. A message from the system confirmed his choice. His power increased from level 1 to level 2, and he felt a new strength. Just then, another one of the boss's ugly helpers appeared. It raised its iron broom, ready to attack him. Tokia knew that once power was unlocked, even a 1-level difference could be enough to easily beat an enemy. The monster ran forward. Its old broom cut through the air as it tried to hit Tokia. But Tokia just smiled a little. He said coolly that the monster was not worth his time. He defeated the helper with one quick and perfect hit. It disappeared in a spray of light in front of him. Another power card appeared. When he took it, his power level rose to 3, making him even stronger. Suddenly, Tokia felt danger from behind. He turned around quickly to defend himself. He quickly swung his own iron broom. He blocked the attack and hit back hard, defeating the creature. Tokia then said with confidence that cheap shots did not work on him. A system message appeared. It said a cleaner was defeated and he had received an E-rank speed card. He smiled for a moment as he held the new green card. He knew that speed was also very important to win. The boss and its last few helpers were furious. They all looked at Tokia and screamed that he was filthy trash. The aggression system was unfair. Players who defeated many enemies were targeted more, making the fight harder for themselves. Tokia knew the boss had a skill that made it much stronger. He had no choice but to fight them alone, one by one. The boss and its last 2 helpers roared together. They charged at Tokia, attacking him with all their might. Tokia shouted to the other players. He told them to throw things at the monsters to give him time to attack back. He thought that if anyone there had some potential, he could help them clear the dungeon so more people could survive. But the other players were too scared to move. They cried that they would be eliminated if they attacked the monsters. Seeing that they were too afraid to help, Tokia knew he had to make his own chance to attack, using only his own strength. The boss jumped forward with its broom held high. It yelled trash as it got ready to hit him hard. Then someone from the scared crowd threw a keyboard. It hit the monster and briefly stopped its attack, creating a small opportunity. The other players were surprised by the bold move. Tokia made a small sound of approval, seeing the risky action had worked. One player, feeling braver after the keyboard was thrown, yelled to the others that they needed to help the one fighting for them. But a man in a suit quickly pulled him back. He shouted that normal people could not fight monsters. The boss got angry at being defied. It turned to the scared players and said it would sanitize all of them. The monsters screamed and charged at the other players. They screamed in terror as it came closer. Someone screamed desperately for help as the monster janitor got closer. Tokia moved very fast. He defeated the last 2 helpers in one smooth move, saving the scared young man. He smiled with confidence. He thought that with his current power he could finish the fight quickly. Only the boss was left. The system made a sound. It gave him another speed card and a power card for defeating the helpers. The boss, still very angry, turned to another scared player. It shouted about sanitizing the trash as the man cried for help. Then Tokia appeared quietly behind the monster. He said in a cold voice that the monster was the only trash there. He defeated the boss with one perfect and powerful hit. The creature fell to the ground without a chance to fight back. The system made another sound and a message appeared. It said that player Kurasu Tokia had defeated the first boss. After the boss was defeated, the rankings were shown. Tokia received many prizes for doing the most work. He had 700 points and was in first place. He then found out that the first place player received a special S-rank card. Tokia thought about the card with interest. He had not received this card in his past life and was excited to see what it could do. Tokia looked at the other players who were still struggling. He understood that staying number 1 meant fighting both monsters and his rivals. A voice from the system announced that the rankings included every player. They were all part of a very large and difficult competition in this first dungeon. The event known as Prison Day had come without any warning. It was a disaster that trapped people all over the world in an instant. Tokia's thoughts went back to his past life. He remembered a world where people had great power and incredible, unique skills. Tokia knew that rewards and rankings would reset for the next dungeon. To move forward, he had to clear this one without any mistakes. He was stronger now than ever before. He felt a strong need to defeat the Dark God. To do so, he needed to get the number 1 card. The system announced his rewards. He received 2 Vigor cards and 2 rare special cards named Purity and the mysterious Iron Seed. Tokia was a little surprised to see the Iron Seed. He quietly said he was lucky, knowing it could create a weapon from his personal energy. The card explained that the Iron Seed would make a personal iron weapon. There was a chance it could become something very unique. He hoped it would become a powerful sword or a quick katana. He silently wished for the best result. Tokia then turned to the man with glasses who had helped him. The sudden attention surprised the man. Tokia saw that the man had helped him in a dangerous spot without pausing. That was a rare and important quality for a real player. Tokia sincerely thanked him for distracting the boss. The man was modest and said he was only trying to save himself. Because the man had helped, Tokia offered him some cards. He explained they would awaken his powers and be a big help. The man with glasses looked awkward and refused the cards. He insisted that Tokia should be the one to use them. Tokia insisted, pushing the cards into the man's hand. He told him not to be shy, explaining that he deserved a reward for his help. Tokia showed the man how to use them. His mind was already on stage 2 and the need to improve his own abilities. Right away, Tokia used his own cards. He was getting ready for the challenges that were coming next. In a moment, his power and speed jumped to level 4. The man with glasses watched and finally understood the process. Feeling encouraged, the man with glasses used his cards. A light feeling spread through his body. He was leveling up and getting stronger for the first time. A status screen appeared in front of him. It showed his name, Adachi Fumihiko, and his improved abilities. Adachi was completely surprised. He had earned experience points without even hitting a monster. Tokia explained that just helping in a battle was enough to get experience. He added that leveling up automatically improved all of a person's stats. Adachi, still amazed, asked Tokia for his level. Tokia replied calmly that he was already at level 4, leaving Adachi speechless. Tokia's own status screen showed it was true. He had quickly reached level 4 in all his main stats. Tokia held the Iron Seed, full of excitement. He was eager to see the weapon his own energy would create. The seed in his hand began to twist and change. It then burst into a bright flash of powerful blue light. A special kind of sword appeared. It was a growth type that could steal health from enemies and learn a new skill every 10 levels. A small smile appeared on his face. He thought it was not bad, knowing a rare weapon like this could be as strong as a C-rank 1. Adachi was speechless. He stammered that it was amazing and exactly what he expected from the person who beat the boss. Tokia knew the weapon was good, but privately he thought it was nothing like the powerful weapons he had in his past life. A loud system announcement congratulated all the players. They had successfully passed the difficult first stage of the dungeon. Right away, an announcement for stage 2 was made. All players were told to go to the boss's refectory without delay. He noticed things were happening exactly as they did in his past life. This thought made him feel surprisingly calm. He turned to Adachi and asked him to come along. The man with glasses agreed immediately. Tokia explained his reason. He needed a smart partner for what was coming, and he thought Adachi was a good choice. Adachi was excited by the offer and agreed. Tokia said they needed to hurry to the next location. As they started to leave, the other players saw them. They began to shout, begging to come along and promising rewards. One bold player stepped forward. He argued that since Tokia was so good, it was his job to help and lead everyone else. Tokia's eyes glowed red with anger. He made a cold threat, telling them to move or he would crush them. The players pulled back. They were terrified by his powerful presence and the serious threat he made. Without saying more, Tokia and Adachi walked past the frozen players. The group automatically moved to let them through. One player whispered that his look was terrifying. He said that intense stare sent a shiver down his spine. Adachi paused, asking if Tokia was really leaving the others. Tokia answered plainly that they would only slow him down. Tokia said coldly that he did not have to save everyone. He added that he was not some kind of hero. Adachi understood and promised he would not be a burden. In return, Tokia told him about the next boss they would face. Adachi was curious. He asked if mental corruption was a kind of bad effect from the monster. When they reached the boss's refectory, a loud voice from the system told everyone to sit down for stage 2. As they walked inside, the air surprisingly smelled like good food. Then a red monster appeared right in front of them. Adachi gave a small cry of surprise. The bright red monster had suddenly formed right in his way. Tokia told him sharply to sit down quickly. He warned that if he did not, he would be removed like others who broke the rules. They found seats quickly. Adachi commented that since it was so close to stage 1, no one should have a problem being on time. But Tokia disagreed with a serious look. He said that if the others made the wrong choice, they would not get there in time. Meanwhile, far away, the other players were running around in a panic. They were late and felt sorry they had not followed. The countdown reached 10 seconds. For the players who were behind, the pressure felt heavy and real. They finally burst into the room in a panic. They rushed around, desperately looking for a place to sit. The timer hit 0. A cold voice from the system announced that the countdown for stage 2 was over. One of the last players stood in the doorway, out of breath and sweating. He felt a rush of relief, thinking he had made it. But then a cold feeling of fear hit him. A scary figure was right behind him, and his eyes opened wide in terror. The boss of the stage quickly hit him from behind. It said his time was up and he was now out of the game. The other players watched in horror. They realized with a chill that the strange red cook was the boss of this stage. The boss pushed a cart full of strange, weird-looking food. It then gave a single cold order for all the players to eat. Adachi's face twisted in disgust. The boss served him a spoonful of shiny green slime that smelled awful. It looked like the food was made from the very monsters they fought in the first stage. This made it even more horrible to think about. The reflection in Adachi's glasses showed his feelings. He was filled with terror and disgust at the awful scene. Then, with a sick feeling, Adachi understood. The disgusting thing on his plate was one of the monsters from the first stage. He was terrified. The system's voice gave a serious warning. Just looking at the food would cause mental corruption, which would lower their abilities. Adachi's thoughts raced. He knew if his stats were lower, it would be almost impossible to finish the rest of the dungeon. Tokia, however, looked calmly at his plate. He turned to his friend and said in a steady voice that there was more to it. A new system message appeared. It announced the banquet from the underworld and warned that the monster would attack anyone who left food on their plate. A 7-minute timer appeared with another warning. If a player's mental score dropped to 0, they would be removed from the game instantly. Adachi felt panicked. If he did not eat, he would be eliminated, but he could not imagine eating something so disgusting. Tokia smiled with confidence. He admitted this was harder than the first stage, but he knew exactly how to pass it. A wave of despair washed over them. Adachi offered a helping hand, but Tokia shook his head. He told his friend to save the special card for when they truly needed it. A strange corruption in the air grew stronger, pressing down on everyone's minds. A cold voice from the system announced that their mental strength was rapidly falling. A woman turned pale, feeling sick. She whispered that just looking at the horrible food in front of them made her want to throw up. The corruption weakened Tokia's own skills. He knew that fighting the 4 monster cooks right now was impossible. The common plan was to eat the disgusting food to distract the monsters, but Tokia knew this would only give them a very small reward. Suddenly, a surprising message appeared. A hidden power made Tokia completely immune to mental attacks. He was shocked but felt a new sense of hope. For the first time in a long while, Tokia smiled with real confidence. He announced that they could finally win by using a secret high-difficulty rule. He felt a rush of excitement. His new immunity meant they could try for the best rewards, which he needed to protect his ranking. Not everyone felt his hope. One player, filled with disgust, threw his plate to the floor. He shouted that he would rather starve than eat the filthy meal. Adachi noticed the man's mind was starting to break. Tokia explained calmly that people's minds fell apart faster in this place, especially when they saw such awful things. The player finally lost his mind. He began to laugh hysterically, stomping on the spilled food and screaming that he would never eat it. In that moment, a huge, shadowy monster appeared. It immediately struck the player who had refused to eat its food. The monster growled, warning the player he would be eliminated if he didn't eat. But the man lay on the ground, beaten and silent, not saying a word. The boss showed its terrible power. It grabbed the man's face, its giant hand glowing with a menacing red light. The monster dragged the man away into the shadows. His crazy laughter faded as he continued to refuse the disgusting food. A heavy kitchen door slammed shut behind them with a loud bang. The player and the boss were gone, leaving only a frightening silence. A player trembled, whispering that they would be next if they didn't eat, but he wondered how anyone could possibly eat something so horrible. A grim message appeared from the system saying no one had eaten. Another message followed, chilling them all. Everyone's mental strength was now down to 60%. Tokia stepped forward, his voice cutting through the fear. He explained the secret way to win was to start on the easy setting and then switch to hard at the right moment. He then stood up and threw his own plate to the floor. It shattered loudly as he yelled that it was impossible to eat the food, just as the other man had done. He explained that the first step was to get the monster's attention and force the game into hard mode. Pointing to the broken plate, he said he had just done exactly that. A red warning flashed from the system. It announced that the cook monster was now targeting Tokia, who had an 80% chance of being eliminated. The monster boss suddenly appeared right behind him. The creature snarled, threatening to cook his brain in a pan. Tokia did not flinch from the threat. He announced the second step was to defeat one monster so the others would all attack him. Then he drew his sword. He shouted and charged forward. His new blue sword moved like a blur as he met one of the monsters with a fast, perfect strike. He then used a powerful spinning attack. The single blow hit its mark and the monster fell to the ground, defeated. A message from the system confirmed his victory. It announced the monster was defeated and listed his rewards, 2 power cards and 1 vigor card. With the monster gone, the second stage of the fight began. Tokia felt a rush of energy as his power level increased to 5. His plan worked perfectly. The 3 remaining monsters were now completely focused on him, which activated the hard mode he wanted. This was the secret rule he had talked about. The first strike made all the remaining monsters direct their anger at him and him alone. The 3 monsters let out a terrible shriek. Their eyes glowed red as they became enraged and prepared to attack. By killing one of them, Tokia had made the other monsters focus only on him. It was a risky plan, but it kept his friends safe. He knew the danger was great. With every monster attacking him, his chance of being eliminated was very high. He had to be extremely careful. His strategy was simple. He needed to keep his distance from the monsters, save his energy, and get ready to fight the final boss. Since they were all focused on him, there were no more distractions. He had to use all of his skill and every bit of his strength to fight them. One of the monsters, a giant butcher, snarled at him. It promised he would not escape and would be turned into minced meat. The butcher lunged forward, swinging its huge cleaver. But Tokia blocked the attack, his blue sword ringing as it met the heavy blade. Tokia strained, holding his ground against the monster's incredible strength. The butcher stepped back, surprised that a human could stop its famous blade. It prepared to use a new, deadlier attack. The monster roared and used a special skill. A dizzying storm of knife strikes flew through the air, aimed right at Tokia. A small smile appeared on Tokia's face. He thought to himself that he had the monster right where he wanted it, as his plan for victory was already in motion. He knew he did not have the right cards yet. To use his sword's most powerful ability, he first had to defeat these lesser monsters. So he moved through the storm of blades, dodging with amazing speed. He landed quick, careful strikes on all 3 monsters, slowly wearing them down. The butcher mocked him with a harsh voice. It boasted that it was the fastest of all the cooks and that Tokia would soon be defeated. It continued to brag, asking if his weak friends really thought they could beat a cursed blade like its own. Tokia was not bothered. He continued his fight, his sword a flash of silver as he landed more painful hits on all 3 monsters. He blocked another heavy attack with a loud clang. His sword began to hum and glow with a soft, strange light. One of the monsters shrieked in surprise. A glowing projectile had shot out from Tokia's sword, catching it completely off guard. The monster was confused and angry. It howled that it wasn't fair, wondering how his skills could be the same as their own. He felt a surge of victory as his sword's special skill finally unlocked. He could now use the powerful time splitter cut. The monster had a terrible realization. Tokia's attacks had not been random at all. Each one had been carefully planned to build up his skill power. It shrieked in panic for the others to run. It finally understood that it had all been a very clever trap. A cold, winning smile spread across Tokia's face. He whispered that it was too late as he activated his new and terrible skill. He unleashed the time splitter cut. A single, explosive slash of red energy hit all 3 monsters at once in a blinding flash. A message from the system announced his victory. The butcher, the gastronome, and the chopper had all been defeated. The battle was won. Tokia looked down at the fallen monsters with a small smile. He said quietly that the most obvious traps are often the real ones, and then began to collect his rewards. Adachi let out a shaky breath and wiped sweat from his forehead. He admitted how nervous he had been, telling Tokia that his plan had been calculated perfectly. Their relief was cut short by a loud system warning. The hidden rule was now active, making the stage boss enraged and much more powerful. Adachi's eyes grew wide with fresh panic. The thought of the boss's new, stronger abilities was terrifying. The whole room started to shake. A menacing red energy pulsed from the walls, a terrible sign that the boss was about to appear. Tokia's voice cut through the fear. He warned everyone that the boss was now stronger, and if they failed to defeat it, they would all be eliminated. He knew the hidden rule meant they had to fight the boss directly, but in return for the greater danger, the rewards would be 30% better. A look of determination filled Tokia's eyes. He announced that his goal was to get the best rewards, and to do that, he had to defeat this monster. The kitchen door exploded inward with a deafening crash. The boss appeared from the smoke, its huge hands glowing with an angry red light. A furious roar shook the entire room. The boss bellowed, demanding to know who had killed its precious cooks, as its new, terrifyingly high stats appeared before them. Adachi stared in pure terror at the monster's incredible power. A single, hopeless question ran through his mind: how could they possibly win? Without hesitating for even a second, Tokia used every single card he had. His movements were quick and determined as he prepared for the final, brutal battle. He knew he could not hold anything back against this new, more powerful monster. To have any chance of winning, he had to use all of his strength. Tokia played 4 skill cards all at once. He felt a sudden rush of energy as his power, speed, and health all hit their maximum level. His rank was already maxed out at level 5. This meant the extra speed cards he had were now useless because he could not get any faster. Without stopping to think, Tokia threw the extra cards to Adachi. He told him to use them immediately to get an advantage in the fight. Adachi, the man with glasses, quickly caught the cards. He used them and felt a jolt of new power that made him feel much stronger. He could feel that he was faster and had more energy. Adachi understood that Tokia had not just given him cards but a chance to survive. The huge boss monster let out another angry roar. Its voice echoed as it demanded to know who killed its cooks. The monster's loud and frightening roar made the other players freeze in place. They were too scared to keep fighting. But Adachi was not scared at all. The power from the cards acted like a shield, protecting him from the monster's shout. The boss threatened them again. It promised to crush their heads if they did not tell it who killed its cooks. Just as the monster got ready to attack, a blur of motion shot through the air, heading straight for it at an incredible speed. In a flash, Tokia appeared with his sword already in his hand. He blocked the boss's attack and protected the frightened players. The huge monster stepped back, surprised that a simple player had stopped its powerful blow. It stared at Tokia with burning rage. Tokia stepped forward without any fear. In a clear, strong voice, he told the monster that he was the one responsible. The boss roared and promised to make him suffer horribly. It said it would kill the others first and then take Tokia's brain. But Tokia just smirked and cut the monster off. He told it that would not happen if he cut its neck first. The monster let out a deep laugh as a challenge. It then charged forward, raising its massive cleaver to begin its attack. Their weapons crashed together with a loud crack. The impact created a powerful shockwave that made cracks spread across the floor. Adachi cried out Tokia's name, his voice full of worry. He watched as his friend was thrown backward by the boss's immense strength. Even after the hard hit, Tokia got back to his feet. He gave his worried friend a look to show that he was okay. He thought about how long it had been since someone said his name with so much real concern. His mind began to drift to the past. In his previous life, his old friends had called him by that same name. It was a sad but sweet memory of friends he had lost on a similar path. A feeling of sadness came over him. He remembered the painful moments when his friends died one by one until he was the only one left. A serious look came over his face. He wondered why fate had been so cruel and let him be the only one to survive. The boss roared again, pulling him from his thoughts. It charged forward, ready to launch another brutal attack. Tokia's eyes grew hard. He did not understand it in his past life, but now he knew exactly what he had to do. He met the monster's charge with a determined look. He stared at it and roared that it should prepare for the end. Their weapons hit each other again with great force. The sound of their huge struggle echoed all around the room. Tokia's sword began to glow with a bright red energy. He was gathering all of his strength for one final attack. The boss pulled back, surprised by how fast the young man was attacking. It had a scary thought that he might have been holding back his true power. With a powerful shout, Tokia used his special ability. A fast series of red slashes shot through the air toward the monster. In the middle of his attack, he remembered something important. He had survived his past life because he was brave and never hesitated. He let out a determined shout. He said that more than anything else, he had always wanted to win and be the very best. He promised that nothing would stop him from winning. But this time, it was not just about winning for himself. He wanted to protect everyone. He wanted to keep the world a normal, peaceful place for all the people who deserved it. A system message appeared. It announced that the second stage boss was defeated and the reward was increased by 30%. Among his rewards were strong health and speed cards. He also received a special, shining memory card. He also got a surprise bonus. For 10 minutes, one of his skills was boosted by 3 levels. Tokia knew with a smart look in his eye that he would not have gotten those extra points if he hadn't found the hidden rule. He quickly opened the rankings page. He wanted to check his score and see how the other players were doing. He was still in first place with 1,700 points. As he looked at the list, he saw the names of the same strong players from his past life. He knew all of them. They were very talented people who would become important in the fights that were coming. He knew the dark gods would create cruel and deadly stages. Many strong players had died on those stages before. But in this new life, he would get a rare card that could resist their evil power. He was ready and waiting to meet them again. He stared at the images of his old rivals. He prepared himself for the difficult challenges that were ahead. A notice appeared telling everyone they had cleared the second stage. Then in a more serious tone, it announced the final stage was starting. There were less than 5 minutes left. All players were told to go to the underground lobby immediately. Tokia's face became very serious. He readied himself because the final and hardest stage was about to begin. He called Adachi's name. His friend answered right away, showing he was ready to follow him anywhere. Adachi walked behind Tokia a little nervously. He felt a bit intimidated by his friend's strong and powerful presence. Then Adachi gently pulled on Tokia's sleeve to get his attention. He held out a tissue, which made Tokia feel a little confused. His friend held the small piece of paper out to him with a gentle smile. It was a simple and kind thing to do. Tokia asked if it was a napkin. Adachi explained that he found it on a table and thought he might want to wipe his face. With a shy smile, Adachi said he wished he could be more useful. That way, things would not be so hard for his new friend. Tokia was truly touched by this. He thought to himself that there were still so many good people left in the world. He told Adachi that he was wrong and that he had been a very big help. Adachi's eyes got a little watery from his kind words. Suddenly, the hallway in front of them began to shimmer. Several ugly blue monsters appeared and announced that the first 2 stages had been broken. One monster had an evil smile on its face. It snarled at the others to not hold back and to eat everything they could find. A digital countdown glowed ominously, ticking away the last 4 minutes they had to reach the lobby. The clock was their most immediate enemy. Adachi, ever the pragmatic one, turned to Tokia. Was it your speed then? Is high-level stats all it takes to win? Tokia shook his head. It's never that simple, Adachi. Raw power is one thing, but individual skill, that's what truly makes the difference. A shadow crossed Adachi's face. He confessed, a touch of anxiety in his voice, but I'm terrible at sports. Even with level 5 speed, I doubt I could dodge anything. Adachi watched Tokia, a spark of admiration in his eyes. He mused, Tokia must have gone through some serious training to be this strong. They paused at the precipice of a grand staircase, and Tokia turned, preparing to impart the next crucial instructions to his friend. Adachi, Tokia began, I need you to wait here. Anyone who comes, tell them not to run. The instruction hung in the air, puzzling Adachi. Tokia clarified, it's a hidden rule and a critical one. If we're caught fleeing, if we're judged for it, we'll be trapped here forever. What's wrong? Adachi pressed, but Tokia offered no answer, merely turning to descend into the unknown below. You didn't defeat the boss, Tokia stated simply, his voice firm. It's too dangerous for you to come down. Adachi nodded, understanding dawning. With a determined salute, he promised to relay the warning to everyone. Tokia couldn't help but smile, thinking what a good guy his friend was. Tokia knew that unlocking this hidden rule would be far easier with assistance. To attempt it alone, however, would be a daunting, perhaps impossible task. His mind raced, recalling the details of the third stage, 10 formidable level 5 guards and a single terrifying level 7 boss. This stage was a different beast entirely from the second, teeming with far more formidable guardians and an even stronger, more cunning leader. In his past life, victory here had only been achieved through unwavering cooperation, fighting as a unified team against the relentless onslaught. A sudden voice echoed from the top of the stairs, calling his name. Tokia spun around, curiosity piqued. A knowing smirk touched Tokia's lips. The person he had been anticipating, the key to his strategy, had finally arrived. In the previous timeline, this individual had been instrumental, having also uncovered the very hidden rule that became the linchpin of their group's triumph. His name was Kenomi Yuya. In the original timeline, his prowess had been so striking, he had even overshadowed Tokia himself. Adachi, dutifully attempting to relay Tokia's don't run warning, found his earnestness misinterpreted by Yuya, who perceived it as mockery. Tokia intervened smoothly. It's not a joke, he stated, his gaze steady. It's a warning from a teammate. Yuya acknowledged Tokia's impressive display in the second stage, admitting that he hadn't needed any assistance. But now, comprehending the gravity of their situation, Yuya's competitive spirit flared. He wanted to challenge Tokia to prove who truly was the strongest. Yuya lunged, a swift, aggressive move. "Focus on the next boss first," Tokia warned, his voice calm amidst the impending clash. "You're facing the wrong enemy," Tokia said, evading the strike. "We need to join forces if we want to win." Then with a single, swift, and impossibly precise blow, Tokia struck Yuya square in the chest, sending him sprawling backward. Yuya gasped, utterly shocked by Tokia's seemingly superhuman strength. Disbelief etched across his face. Yuya wondered if this was a game-induced boost or some unknown special ability Tokia possessed. Tokia then extended his hand, offering Yuya 3 gleaming cards, a silent invitation to join the true battle. Yuya's gaze narrowed, suspicion heavy in his eyes. "Join you?" he demanded, glaring intently at Tokia. "Yes," Tokia confirmed, "and if you do, these 3 power cards are yours." With a precise flick, Tokia sent a memory card sailing through the air, hitting Yuya squarely on the forehead. The green card pulsed with a bright light, and Yuya felt a rush of sensation as his forgotten memories began to awaken, leaving him momentarily stunned. Tokia understood the enemy's strategy, erased memories bred disunity. Without them, there was no reason to protect anyone, nothing to fight for. The Dark God knew human nature intimately, and this manipulation of memory was its most potent weapon against them all. As the memories surged back, a vibrant green aura flared around Yuya, completely enveloping him. "I know who you care about, Yuya," Tokia stated, his voice softening. "Will you accept my proposal?" Yuya's eyes widened. He remembered his younger brother, a poignant ache in his heart. He had to survive, had to see him again. "If I join you," Yuya asked, his voice laced with a desperate hope, "are we guaranteed to clear this dungeon?" Tokia met his gaze with a confident smile. "We will," he promised, tossing him the 3 power cards. "I won't forget this favor," Yuya vowed, gripping the cards. He activated them, and a surge of energy boosted his power stats. "I'll go on ahead," Tokia announced. "There are still enemies to clear along the way." He then activated his own power cards, along with a surprise boss buff, steeling himself for what was to come. Tokia knew that even with his current strength, the level 7 boss ahead would be a formidable challenge. He would need every ounce of power he could muster. Fortunately, the buff surged through him, increasing his power by 3 levels, making him significantly more formidable for the impending battle. A smirk played on Tokia's lips. "Thanks for the assist, boss," he muttered, noting his power had climbed yet another level. Suddenly, the path ahead filled with grotesque blue monsters, materializing as if from thin air, ready for the stage's final, brutal combat. The creatures jeered, their voices rasping, calling Tokia and Yuya scrawny, and boasting that they wouldn't withstand their powerful attacks. For the first time, Yuya felt the monster's truly intimidating presence, a wave of unease washing over him. A doubt gnawed at him. Could just the 2 of them truly defeat these formidable creatures? But Tokia's voice cut through his worry, calm and resolute. "The 2 of us are more than enough," he assured Yuya. "We will win." The system's interface flickered, displaying their stats. Tokia now at a staggering power level 11 and Yuya at level 2. His power augmented, Tokia took a step forward, declaring with chilling confidence, "I am the stage boss now." He prepared to attack. With a battle cry, Tokia lunged towards the horde of grotesque monsters, his sword a gleaming arc in the dim light. But from behind, Yuya's voice cut through the chaos, sharp with urgency. "Wait, don't rush in." Yuya watched, a knot forming in his stomach. To him, Tokia's actions seemed nothing short of suicidal, a reckless gamble he couldn't fathom. Tokia's mind, however, was already back in the shadowed arenas of his past, remembering countless underground fights where every opponent was a stranger, every battle a dance with danger. He knew the cardinal rule, never rush, always analyze. But before Tokia could fully assess his opponent, a confident grin plastered across its face, lunged, aiming a powerful, precise punch. Tokia's eyes narrowed, tracking every twitch and shift, his body tensing, already formulating his defense and the inevitable counterattack. In a blur of motion, he slipped past the strike, a phantom in the air, then unleashed his own fist, a thunderclap of force that sent his assailant crumbling to the ground in an instant. Yet as Tokia prepared to press his advantage, Yuya's voice, laced with apprehension, cut through the din. "Don't advance blindly, Tokia, or these blue monsters will defeat you." A monstrous guard, its form crackling with arcane energy, snarled, labeling Tokia a weakling, even as its stats materialized in the air, a clear threat accompanying the swing of its electric baton. Without hesitation, the creature lunged, its electric baton slicing through the air in a preemptive strike, aiming to incapacitate Tokia before he could react. But Tokia was ready. His sword, now a familiar extension of his will, glinted in anticipation, poised to unleash a powerful and precise counterattack. From the sidelines, Yuya watched, a flicker of awe in his eyes. Tokia's sheer speed and raw power were astounding, making Yuya wonder if he had been holding back this entire time. The lead guard, sensing an unsettling shift in Tokia's presence, barked orders. urging its brethren to combine their skills and attack as a coordinated unit. A system alert blared, its urgent tone cutting through the battle's roar. 56 seconds remaining, all players must enter the underground lobby. Tokia and Yuya exchanged a silent, knowing glance. The battle was far from over. A new challenge, the final combat, awaited them in the depths of the underground lobby. Tokia knew the hidden rule. The moment they crossed the threshold into the lobby, the enemies would attack, even amidst the final countdown. His sword pulsed with a blue light as Tokia unleashed a powerful spinning strike, carving a path through the guards. With only 49 seconds left, he understood his grim task: clear as many monsters as possible, protect everyone. Meanwhile, Adachi, ever the calm voice amidst panic, tried to soothe the frantic players, reassuring them they had ample time to reach the safety of the lobby. Tokia's lips curled into a subtle smile. Adachi had understood the unspoken strategy, his quick thinking a welcome relief in the mounting chaos. As the countdown dwindled to 21 seconds, Adachi's voice rang out, firm and clear, instructing everyone to proceed into the underground lobby in an orderly fashion. Adachi grasped Tokia's true intention: to stall, to hold the line until the very last second, preventing any premature entry into the lobby where hidden dangers lurked. Only 12 seconds remained, a ticking clock amplifying the tension for those players still outside, caught between the fighting and the impending deadline. Yuya, watching Tokia's fierce solo stand, grumbled, arguing that these enemies weren't so formidable and they should all join the hero in battle. But Tokia's voice, sharp and commanding, cut through Yuya's protests. Stay back, don't interfere with the blue guards. The blue guards, recognizing Tokia's overwhelming strength, muttered amongst themselves, shifting tactics. They would recharge their energy by targeting the other, weaker players. Suddenly, Tokia's gaze locked with Yuya's. Now, he declared, it's your turn to join the fight. Just then a guard charged, aiming for the vulnerable players, but Yuya, quick as a flash, stepped forward, shielding them from the impending attack. With a guttural roar, Yuya met the monster's blow, but the force was too great. He was sent tumbling backwards, slamming into the ground. Scrambling up, Yuya roared at the monster, don't you dare touch them. A sudden clarity washed over him. There was a crucial reason Tokia was protecting the others with such fierce determination. Yuya, fueled by a renewed resolve, launched himself at the guard, fists flying, only to find his punches utterly ineffective, glancing off the monster's armored hide. A chill of dread ran through him. How was Tokia, then, managing to fight against such seemingly invincible monsters? Adachi, seeing the growing despair, hushed the fearful players, reminding them to stay quiet lest they draw more attention, assuring them with quiet confidence, Tokia will handle this. A collective sigh of agreement rippled through the group. There was nothing left to do but place their absolute trust in Tokia and his capabilities. Their hopes rested squarely on the shoulders of Tokia and Yuya, praying they could hold their ground and not succumb to the relentless assault of the blue monsters. In the thick of the battle, Tokia felt a surge of energy. His sword skill points had finally reached their full accumulation. At that precise moment, the lead guard bellowed, ordering its brethren to unleash a full, synchronized assault to overwhelm the hero and end the fight. A confident, almost predatory smile touched Tokia's lips. I was thinking the exact same thing, he murmured, his gaze meeting the monsters. Then in a blinding flash, Tokia unleashed his devastating time splitter cut, a powerful skill that struck every single guard at once, a whirlwind of destructive energy. Adachi and the other players stared, mouths agape, utterly awestruck. The sheer, incredible power Tokia wielded was a revelation, a comfort to have such strength on their side. Meanwhile, Yuya, still reeling from his earlier clash, struggled desperately against a single guard, his mind reeling with the impossible question, how could Tokia be so overwhelmingly powerful? Tokia turned, his cold gaze falling upon the last remaining guard. You're next, he warned, his voice a low, chilling promise. But this was no ordinary guard. It was the final level 7 boss, and it returned Tokia's stare with a chilling, psychopathic grin that promised pain. The monstrous boss rumbled, a guttural laugh escaping its lips. It savored the prospect of finishing off guys like him, it declared, as it readied itself for the ultimate battle. A collective gasp of terror rippled through the remaining players. The boss's level 10 power was terrifying, shattering their fragile hopes and replacing them with overwhelming doubt. Tokia charged, the memory of his past life flashing before his eyes. This very boss, in a grueling, drawn-out fight, had once claimed countless lives. His sword erupted with a fierce, red energy as Tokia unleashed a powerful, devastating slash towards the formidable enemy. This time, however, Tokia knew, a deep conviction settling in his heart, that he alone would be more than enough to claim victory. The boss's maniacal laugh echoed, a taunt of triumph as it managed to block Tokia's powerful crimson attack. Unfazed, Tokia pressed forward, his determination unyielding, ready to continue the fierce combat until its inevitable end. He activated his skill once more, a torrent of red slashes raining down upon the colossal monster, each strike a brutal testament to his power. Under the relentless barrage of blows, the final boss let out a pained shriek, then dissolved into a shimmering cascade of light, utterly vanquished. A system screen materialized, displaying Tokia's status. He had leveled up to 8, a powerful testament to his solo triumph. A sly smile touched his lips as Tokia realized the secret. By strategically defeating the weaker monsters, he had accumulated powerful cards that had significantly boosted his strength. Tokia mused, the thought a pleasant hum in his mind, that the true joy of fighting alone was simple. All the experience points and powerful cards were exclusively his. Adachi and the stunned players could only gape, utterly shell-shocked by Tokia's inhuman strength, a silent vow forming in their hearts. They would follow him forever. Spotting a lone monster still standing, Yuya, fueled by a surge of bravado, charged forward yelling, "I'll finish this with a single punch." The monster, however, snarled back, its voice laced with fury, warning Yuya that he was the one truly in for a bad time. But before Yuya, the fiery redhead, could even land his punch, Tokia appeared as if from nowhere, his sword a swift, decisive arc, slicing the guard clean in half with a single, effortless blow. Yuya collapsed to the ground, utterly stunned. He stared at the dissolving monster, unable to comprehend that Tokia had instantly defeated the very creature he had struggled so fiercely against. A system notification chimed, congratulating everyone on clearing the dungeon, then proudly displayed the rankings. Tokia, at a staggering 99%, stood at the undisputed top. Tokia, a confident, knowing expression on his face, awaited the reward calculation, already musing about the impressive bonus he was surely about to receive. A shimmering screen declared their ultimate reward. Anything they acquired in this brutal survival game could be carried back to the real world. A wave of joyous shouts erupted from the other players, their faces alight with relief and elation at the promise of tangible rewards for their harrowing efforts. Tokia, however, felt a familiar chill. He knew that merely clearing the dungeon offered only a basic prize, a small boon for survival, but there was always a catch, an insidious twist lurking beneath the surface. He remembered his past life, a bleak mirror of this one, where those who gained immense power had swiftly turned it to malevolent ends, twisting the real world into their own playground of cruelty. This time, Tokia vowed things would be different. He had to establish order, to forge rules and structure among the players, and he had to do it immediately. To achieve this, he would need allies, powerful figures drawn to his undeniable strength. He knew his top ranking would serve as a beacon, drawing them to his cause. Indeed, the overall contribution ranking screen confirmed his status, his name emblazoned in first place with a commanding 3,000-point lead over the next contender. In the eyes of every other player, he was the undisputed leader, the one whose will would dictate the new rules of this perilous game. Just then, a resonant hum filled the air as all players received their newfound abilities, their bodies tingling with an unfamiliar strength and lightness. Adachi, too, was thrilled, eagerly scanning his personal panel. His new attributes were all at level 1, but the potential shimmered before him. Nearby, Yuya grunted in satisfaction, his own panel displaying stats already elevated to level 2, making him feel undeniably stronger. Tokia, however, merely glanced at his own status. His power had soared to an astonishing level 15, a gulf separating him from the others. A new system announcement then echoed, declaring that contribution rewards would now be generated, scaled precisely to each person's individual percentage. Adachi and Yuya exchanged worried glances. With their comparatively low contributions, they wondered if they would receive anything at all, a pang of regret for not fighting harder echoing in their minds. Even Tokia felt a flicker of uncertainty. In his past life, his contribution had never reached such staggering heights. What new wonders awaited him now? Adachi's worries quickly turned to a grin as he saw his reward, a power card, which he knew could be used to boost his ability score yet again. Yuya, ever the braggart, puffed out his chest, 2 cards clutched in his hand. "My contribution was incredible," he boasted, convinced he'd outdone everyone. All eyes, however, inevitably drifted to Tokia, the silent question hanging in the air. What magnificent bounty would the undisputed leader receive? A faint smile touched Tokia's lips. "This is all new to me," he admitted, as 3 brilliant, luminous cards materialized before him. His rewards were astounding. One card promised to elevate his stats to an immediate level 10, another offered a rare class change, and the third, most unexpectedly, held the power to summon allies. A surge of pure elation washed over Tokia. He could boost his skills to unprecedented levels and simultaneously gather the allies he so desperately needed. He felt incredibly, profoundly lucky. Suddenly, the very ground beneath them began to heave and tremble. Panic seized the other players, their faces contorted in confusion and fear, unable to comprehend the unfolding chaos. A chilling realization dawned: the dungeon was collapsing. Their minds raced, hoping against hope that this cataclysm meant their final, long-awaited return to reality. Tokia's voice cut through the fear, confirming their thoughts. "Yes," he stated gravely, "upon clearing a dungeon we can return to the real world, but only for a short time." His next words were a stark warning. The world had changed, he revealed, twisted and warped by the creator of this deadly game, who now sought to destroy everything they knew. A stunned silence fell upon the group, their faces etched with shock. Who, they wondered, could possibly wield such malevolent power, and why would they unleash such terror upon the world? Tokia then turned to them, his gaze firm and resolute. "I am counting on every single one of you," he declared, "to give your absolute all in the next dungeon that appears." He urged them to amass power not just for themselves, but to defeat the insidious villain who had imprisoned them, and to protect their world from utter annihilation. Adachi frowned, the word protect feeling alien and confusing. He couldn't quite grasp the full weight of Tokia's speech. Yuya, on the other hand, simply eyed Tokia with growing suspicion, convinced the protagonist was making some alarmingly bold claims. A final, resonant system notification then boomed forth. For placing first, the young man had earned a legendary special S-rank card. From the swirling shadows, a formless entity materialized, its voice echoing in their minds, promising Tokia the power of a god if he could prove himself truly capable. And then, just as suddenly, Tokia's eyes snapped open. He was back, lying in his sterile hospital bed, the stark reality of the real world washing over him. He let out a long, shuddering sigh, hoping desperately that the others would believe his warnings. He knew with absolute certainty that he needed more power if he was to have any chance of saving the world. Just then, a nurse burst into the room, her voice frantic with excitement as she called for the doctor. "He's awake. The patient has finally awakened." The doctor arrived swiftly, confirming Tokia was fully lucid, and that miraculously all his vital signs had returned to normal. But his expression was grim as he revealed a chilling truth. Hundreds of thousands of people, just like Tokia, had fallen into an inexplicable coma over the past 3 days. He noted with a mix of wonder and concern that Tokia was the very first to awaken. Then, his voice dropping, he asked if the young man knew anything about the cause of this terrifying mass coma. Tokia, however, ignored the question completely, his gaze, now steel-hard and serious, fixed on the doctor. "Where is my mother?" he demanded. The doctor led him down the quiet hall, explaining as they went that his mother had also fallen into a coma and, unlike him, had not yet stirred. In her room, the doctor spoke in a detached, professional tone, stating the medical truth. Tokia's mother was in a vegetative state. A cold dread gripped Tokia. Just as in his previous life, his mother had been chosen, a reluctant player dragged into this cruel game. He knew the rules too well. Not all players were sent into the dungeon simultaneously, and those who failed to awaken remained in this harrowing, unresponsive state. Gazing at his mother's still form, a painful memory resurfaced. Once chosen for the game, there was no true escape, no returning to their old lives. His hand instinctively went to the golden card in his pocket. A flicker of hope ignited, a fierce conviction that his greatest wish, his most cherished desire, was about to be fulfilled. His wish, his one true wish, was for his mother to finally live in peace, untouched by suffering, free from the burdens of this cursed world. He drew the card, its golden glow illuminating his resolute face. It was a special S-rank card, number 1, named Free. Its power was immense. It could prevent someone from ever being chosen for the game again, and in doing so grant him a special, untold ability. With newfound resolve, Tokia made his decision. Now was the moment to use the card, to liberate his beloved mother from the relentless clutches of this deadly game. A blinding, golden light erupted from the card, momentarily overwhelming the doctors who shielded their eyes, utterly bewildered by the sudden, impossible phenomenon. The primary doctor, stunned, fumbled to adjust his glasses, his mind grappling to comprehend the otherworldly scene unfolding before him. His eyes wide with pure astonishment, he stammered, barely able to form the words, I simply can't believe it. At that very instant, Tokia's mother stirred, her eyes fluttering open. Confused, she looked around, asking where she was, her voice weak as she called out for her son and the doctor. Without a moment's hesitation, Tokia surged forward, wrapping his mother in the fiercest embrace he could muster, completely overwhelmed by a torrent of raw emotion. A gentle, tearful smile graced his lips as he whispered, "From this day forward, Mama, you no longer have to fight, you no longer have to suffer." The doctor remained speechless, utterly stunned by the miracle he had just witnessed, wondering if what he saw could truly be real. Meanwhile, far beyond the hospital walls, the world contribution ranking continued to display Kuros Tokia's name, isolated and unchallengeable, in first place. This absolute dominance did not go unnoticed. Across the globe, several mysterious figures cloaked in shadow and power resolved that they must recruit the world's number 1 player. A chilling fear gripped them. With such unprecedented power at his command, Tokia could very well become the new, unchallenged ruler of the world. Back in the quiet hospital room, Tokia's mother began to recount a peculiar dream. Her voice hushed as she described a terrifying amusement park. Kurosaki listened, a gentle smile playing on his lips, recognizing the chilling details. His mother had somehow stumbled into a deadly, amusement park-themed dungeon. She continued her tale, explaining how a grotesque monster had almost attacked her, but just as fear threatened to consume her, something strange had intervened. "Everything just went dark," she murmured, a distant look in her eyes, "and I lost consciousness right then and there." Upon awakening, the first sight that greeted her was Tokia's familiar face. She turned to him, a touch of confusion still lingering, and asked, "Wasn't that just the most bizarre dream?" Tokia offered another gentle smile, his thoughts a private echo. "Unfortunately, what you experienced, mother, was no dream at all." Suddenly, a boisterous voice echoed down the hallway, Keita's. Kurosaki's eyes widened slightly in realization. His friend had managed to clear the dungeon too. Keita burst into the room, beaming, proclaiming himself a hero who'd come to the rescue, feeling every bit like a protagonist from a manga. He rambled on about how some strong people had helped him clear it, prompting Tokia's mother to innocently ask if he, too, had experienced a strange dream. Tokia merely offered a bored expression, internally noting Keita's unchanging, exuberant energy. Turning to his mother, Tokia gently urged her to rest, explaining he needed a quick word with Keita just outside. Out in the hallway, Keita immediately grew serious, insisting this was no joke, and that weird game even had a name. Tokia cut him off, a knowing look on his face. "The game's name is Priz Day." Keita's eyes widened in utter shock. Kurosaki then instructed him to check the contribution ranking, assuring him it would prove the reality of their shared ordeal. Utterly bewildered, Keita just scratched his head, mumbling to himself, "Ranking? What in the world is a ranking?" Just then, a luminous blue system screen shimmered into existence before Keita's eyes, rendering him utterly speechless. His eyes wide with amazement, Keita stammered, his gaze fixed on the screen, particularly on the name displayed as the #1 player. Tokia confirmed with a slight smirk, "What you're seeing, my friend, is the absolute truth." The glowing system screen prominently displayed, "First place, Kurosaki, 3,000 points." With a confident glint in his eyes, Kurosaki turned to his friend, declaring, "And I am that top-ranked player." Keita was utterly stunned, finding it impossible to believe that his own friend was the undisputed #1 in this strange, new game. Tokia then produced a shimmering class change card, explaining that all the necessary information would soon flow into him. Without hesitation, he activated the card, and a powerful golden aura immediately enveloped Kurosaki, illuminating the hospital hallway. A system notification rang out. "Class change initiated. A random profession will now be selected." Tokia explained that while every class in this game held immense potential, they all required rigorous leveling, and these class change cards themselves were exceptionally rare. He understood that while classes started weak, their potential for growth was boundless, evolving significantly over time. Among the most coveted were the 3 supreme classes. First, the messenger of the 4 elements, who commanded the very powers of nature. Second, the descendant of the black flame dragon, capable of transforming into a colossal, fire-breathing beast. And finally, the seeker of time, a master of the timeline itself, wielding powers of temporal manipulation and travel. As numerous data screens flashed before him, Kurosaki found himself wondering which new, profound class would be assigned to him. Then, in a brilliant flash of light, a single screen materialized, proudly displaying the name of his new class, Master of Principles. Kurosaki was completely floored. Even in his past life, armed with extensive knowledge of the game, he had never once encountered this class. The screen then detailed a passive ability inherent to his new class, Resonance with Tools. As the class's skill tree unfurled before him, Tokia noticed an alarming number of unknown levels, far more than typical. He was genuinely surprised. Normal classes usually capped at 3 levels. This one, with its extensive, uncharted progression, promised an incredibly difficult path to mastery. A flicker of an excited smile crossed his face. "If I can reach the very end of this skill tree," he mused, "the power I'll gain will be unbelievable." Keita, still staring, remarked that Tokia was apparently the very first person in the entire world to achieve a class change in this game. Keita then became increasingly desperate, calling out Kurosaki's name, clearly unsure of how to proceed. "What's wrong?" Kurosaki asked, only for his friend to dramatically throw himself onto the hallway floor, begging for help. With a theatrical, pleading expression, Keita implored his friend to carry him, to help him become stronger in this new, bewildering reality. Suddenly, a nurse appeared in the hallway, her expression one of polite inquiry as she asked if she was interrupting something. Tokia looked at her, a fleeting memory of the crushing burden of hospital bills from his past life flashing through his mind. She then informed him, her tone firm but polite, that the hospital payments were over a month late, and the funds were urgently needed. Keita, ever the loyal friend, immediately offered his card to help, but Kurosaki declined, stating calmly, "I'll handle this." He reflected that in his previous life, he'd managed similar financial predicaments by working as a bodyguard, relying solely on his physical strength. A newfound determination hardened his gaze. He acknowledged he had relied too much on his mother, but now he would resolve these matters himself. The nurse, excusing herself, stepped away to answer an important, ringing phone call. With a confused frown, she answered, trying to process the astounding information being relayed to her. Shocked by the news, the woman stammered, her voice barely a whisper, Is what I'm hearing really true?" Then a huge smile bloomed on her face as she announced to the empty hallway, "Someone just paid off all of the hospital's debts at once." She then pointed playfully at Keita, adding, "And even the bald guy's portion was covered." Keita, annoyed by the unexpected nickname, quickly clarified that he was not a patient. He was simply visiting his friend. The two young men exchanged a silent, knowing look, and Tokia subtly gestured towards room 226. Just then, a distinguished blonde man, flanked by two imposing companions, appeared in the hallway and began to approach them. With an undeniable air of superiority, the man addressed them, asking, "Where might one find Kurosaki in this establishment?" Both Tokia and Keita exchanged confused glances, silently wondering who these strange, sudden visitors could be. The man pressed on, asking if they were friends of Kurosaki, and if they would be so kind as to relay an important message. A smirk played on Kurosaki's lips, so he thought the major players have arrived much sooner than expected. Keita, Tokia's friend, narrowed his eyes, a ripple of suspicion crossing his face. "What exactly do you want with Tokia?" he challenged, his gaze fixed on the imposing figures. Keita's gaze swept over their impeccably tailored suits and the confident aura they exuded, a realization dawning on him. These were no ordinary people. They were, without a doubt, individuals of significant influence. A thought flickered through Keita's mind. Could their interest in Tokia be connected to his friend's unparalleled status as the world's #1 ranked player? Meanwhile, Tokia, lost in his own thoughts, considered the astronomical sum these strangers had just paid for his medical bills. How much, he mused, would it cost to cover a lifetime of such expenses? The nurse, leaning in conspiratorially, whispered to Tokia, "Those are the ones who took care of all your bills." Tokia merely offered a calm, unbothered reply. "I already know," he stated, his composure leaving the nurse slightly bewildered by his lack of surprise. Without a flicker of hesitation or a change in his placid expression, the young man stepped forward. "My name is Kurasu Tokia," he introduced himself to the assembled group. The blond man, a prominent figure among them, watched Tokia with growing intrigue. He was struck not only by the young man's seemingly unwavering composure in their imposing presence, but also by his remarkably youthful appearance. Tokia, already aware of the vast influence these individuals wielded across diverse fields, meticulously analyzed each one, taking in every detail. The blond man, he knew, was Sumo, the formidable head of a colossal corporation and a rapidly ascending force in the political arena. Beside him stood Cad, the sharp-suited CEO of a leading tech company, a man with deep and undeniable connections to the military establishment. And the woman, elegant and poised, was Aurora, the powerful president of Group X, an entity that controlled immense energy resources and held significant global sway. The group's unspoken leader, Sumo, began, "It is an honor to finally meet you, Mr. Tokia," preparing to launch into a more formal introduction. But Tokia cut him off with a dismissive wave, his voice calm yet firm. "I already know who you are, let's get to the point," he stated, bypassing all pleasantries. Sumo, caught off guard, was visibly taken aback by the young man's audacious directness, an attitude he certainly hadn't anticipated. Cad, however, allowed a faint smirk to play on his lips. The world's #1 player, he thought, is indeed as formidable as the rumors claim. Aurora, too, smiled subtly, a spark of amusement in her eyes. Tokia was proving to be a far more interesting individual than she had initially imagined. Aurora then extended an invitation. "We've prepared a more private room for our discussion if you'd care to join us there." Tokia, however, politely but firmly declined. "No need," he said, indicating the bustling hospital waiting room. "We can talk right here." Sumo and Kade exchanged a brief, knowing glance, a silent acknowledgement passing between them that they understood the underlying message of Tokia's refusal. Sumo, the leader, nodded in agreement. Without further protest, the powerful trio moved towards the hospital waiting room, ready to commence their discussion. Aurora's smile deepened. She recognized the tactic. Tokia was deliberately choosing this public, unconventional setting to subtly assert his dominance and maintain the upper hand in their impending negotiation. The nurse and Keita watched the scene unfold, utterly dumbfounded. Just moments ago, Tokia had been struggling to pay his medical bills, and now he was dictating terms to some of the world's most powerful figures. Breaking the tension, Tokia turned to Keita. "Hey, could you grab that strategy guide I gave you earlier?" he asked calmly. Keita awkwardly scratched his head, a sheepish expression spreading across his face. "Is it really necessary?" he mumbled, hesitant. Then with a guilty flush, he confessed, "I kind of thought it was a joke," and threw it away. A wave of desperation washed over Keita. "I'll go get it right now," he blurted out before dashing frantically down the hallway, a new urgency in his stride. Tokia's irritation was palpable. "This is exactly why neither my mother nor I received any rewards," he fumed internally, a testament to Keita's casual disregard. Aurora, her curiosity piqued, turned her gaze back to Tokia. "A strategy guide you mentioned, what kind of guide?" she inquired. Tokia answered calmly, "It's the strategy guide for the game's beginner dungeons." The three powerful individuals exchanged incredulous glances, then turned back to Tokia. "Stop joking," Sumo scoffed, "the game has barely even begun." A knowing smirk played on Tokia's lips. "Whether it's true or not," he responded, his eyes glinting, "my friend will soon confirm it." The nurse, startled by the sudden appearance of several more men in crisp suits at the entrance, gasped and asked, "Who are they?" When Keita finally returned, flustered with the recovered guide, Sumo took it and began to read. His eyes widened in shock as he realized the text precisely described the dungeon he himself had just experienced. Kat and Aurora, taking turns with the guide, confirmed it too. Their own harrowing dungeon experiences were meticulously detailed within its pages, down to the last, agonizing particular. Keita, his jaw agape, turned to Tokia. "So it was all true," he whispered, to which Tokia simply offered a reassuring smile. A wave of profound regret washed over Keita. He had squandered a colossal opportunity to gain an unprecedented advantage, and the frustration was nearly unbearable. Sumo, the group's leader, bowed his head slightly in deference. "We apologize, Mr. Tokia," he admitted, his tone humbled. "Your power far exceeds our imagination, we were not qualified." Tokia, crossing his arms, a faint smile playing on his lips, simply asked, "And what else do you have to say?" Aurora, ever astute, observed, "With a guide like this, it's as if you can foresee everything that will happen in the game." Tokia's smirk widened. "Precisely," he confirmed, his gaze unwavering. "I know everything." He reflected silently that in his past life, survivors had painstakingly posted every detail online, and he had committed it all to memory. All that arduous effort from his previous existence was now bearing fruit, serving as his ultimate trump card against the looming threat of the dark gods. Leaning forward slightly, Tokia brought them back to the present. "So," he asked, his voice direct and penetrating, "what exactly do you want from me now?" The formidable trio exchanged a quick, meaningful glance, a silent consultation before offering their reply. Then in unison the three bowed their heads respectfully. "We ask you, young Tokia," Sumo began, "to become our advisor." Sumo admitted, a genuine shiver in his voice, that the feeling of navigating the dungeon's perils like walking a perilous tightrope had been truly terrifying. Kata added, a hopeful glint in his eyes, "With your guidance, Mr. Tokia, we believe we won't have to face such a desperate situation again." Aurora concluded, "We know we will be forced back into this game world, and we simply cannot afford to fare poorly." Keita, utterly speechless, could only watch in wide-eyed silence as his unassuming friend effortlessly took complete charge of the entire negotiation. Therefore, with a resolute gaze, Sumo declared, "We are prepared to accept any condition you deem necessary, Mr. Tokia." Tokia, with a casual shrug that belied the gravity of the moment, simply replied, "I don't mind becoming your advisor." Keita's eyes sparkled with unbridled excitement, a single thought dominating his mind. "My partner is unbelievably cool." Kurasu Tokia's thoughts drifted to Keita, his loyal friend. He knew Keita's family struggled, and in their world money was the most desperate need. Keita, however, was already lost in a fantasy, picturing himself swimming through mountains of cash, envisioning lavish spending sprees with Tokia by his side. But Kurasu Tokia, ever the pragmatist, cut through Keita's reverie. "I have 3 conditions," he stated plainly, interrupting the rising excitement. Kade, the group's leader, exchanged a knowing glance with Aurora and Sumo, a proud smile playing on his lips. As expected, he thought, Kurasu Tokia truly is a master negotiator. Kade waved a dismissive hand. 30, even 300 conditions would be acceptable, Tokia, he declared, eager to close the deal, but Tokia's next words caught him off guard. Keita, jolted back to reality, let out a silent groan. He lamented, "Why didn't I push him to ask for more when he had the chance?" "My first condition," Tokia began, his voice firm, "is that the strategy guide must be publicly released for everyone." Kata's eyes widened in disbelief. "You intend to give away something that could literally save lives, for free?" he pressed, astonishment etched on his face. Sumo, the man in the impeccably tailored suit, nodded slowly. He's right, he conceded. The true value of that guide, its life-saving potential, is beyond anyone's imagination. Aurora, the sharp-eyed woman, chimed in, a grim undertone in her voice. This only serves to prove how truly dangerous this game is for every single person caught within its grasp. Tokia met their gazes, a slight tilt to his head. Didn't I just show you the guide just now for free? He queried, a subtle challenge in his tone. The group fell silent, momentarily speechless. His simple, undeniable logic hung in the air, leaving them to acknowledge the validity of his point. My goals diverge from yours, Tokia continued, his gaze unwavering. My primary aim is to save as many people as possible. His expression hardened, his voice dropping to a serious warning. If you cannot accept this, then our discussion ends now. A palpable tension filled the room. They recognized the unwavering seriousness in the young man's eyes, and Aurora, in particular, found herself admiring his unyielding defiance against the lure of profit. With renewed conviction, Cad, Sumo, and Aurora bowed once more, collectively promising to fulfill Tokia's first condition without delay. My second condition, Tokia resumed, is the establishment of a player management agency, governed by very clear and strict rules. Sumo, the blonde-haired man, offered a reassuring smile. You can relax on that front, Kurasu, he stated. We were already planning to do precisely that. Tokia took a breath, steeling himself to announce his final and perhaps most crucial condition of the entire deal. A collective tension gripped the group. They braced themselves, a silent question hanging between them. Could this final demand be something even they, with all their power, would be unable to fulfill? Money, Keita suddenly bellowed, unable to contain himself. Ask for money, Tokia, it's my last wish. Tokia, however, ignored Keita's frantic plea. His gaze softened slightly as he spoke. I want a house, a place where my mother and I no longer have to live in this hospital. He glanced over at his mother, still peacefully resting in her hospital bed. I just want her to live a normal, peaceful life, he murmured, a rare glimpse of his deeper desires surfacing. Kade, Sumo, and Aurora exchanged bewildered looks, utterly dumbfounded by the simplicity of his request. Keita, meanwhile, slapped a frustrated hand to his face. If it's too difficult, Tokia quickly added, sensing their hesitation, I can withdraw the request. I dislike the feeling of begging. No, please don't withdraw, Kade quickly interjected, Sumo and Aurora nodding emphatically. Preparing a suitable house for you is an easy task, Kurasu. A faint smirk touched Tokia's lips. Don't get so overly excited about my requests, he advised, a hint of amusement in his voice. Kade immediately apologized for their unseemly display, while Sumo and Aurora let out awkward, nervous laughs, the tension finally easing. Internally, they all agreed. Of all the conditions Tokia could have asked for, this was by far the easiest to fulfill, and one that would undeniably deepen his favor towards their organization. Bringing the discussion to a close, Tokia announced, I need to return to my room. I have other matters to attend to. Be warned, Tokia added, his tone somber. The countdown for the next prison day will begin very shortly. The trio's eyes widened in collective shock. Is what you say truly real? Kata stammered, his voice laced with disbelief. As if on cue, a translucent, glowing 3-day countdown materialized before their very eyes, an undeniable testament to the young man's ominous prediction. Once you fulfill the second condition, Tokia informed them, gesturing towards the countdown, I will provide the strategy for the next dungeon. Kade, Sumo, and Aurora bowed deeply and respectfully. We will do as you command without question, Kurasu Tokia, Kade affirmed on behalf of them all. With their agreement secured, Kurasu Tokia turned, heading back into the quiet sanctuary of his hospital room to rest. The powerful group watched him depart, already mobilizing to carry out his extraordinary orders. Moments later, a security guard approached them, his voice hushed. Sirs, ma'am, someone wishes to meet with Kurasu Tokia. Sumo, ever protective of Tokia's privacy, frowned. Do not bother the protagonist, he instructed sharply. Have them wait outside. The guard, however, stammered nervously. But she's asking if the young man in the room is her boyfriend. The group exchanged surprised glances, their curiosity piqued. They turned as one to see who this unexpected visitor could be. It's her, Mr. Kurasu's person, Keita shrieked, instantly recognizing the newcomer. They make a truly great couple. A hand clamped over Keita's face, stifling his nonsensical proclamations. Stop saying such things, the young woman interjected sharply, her voice cutting through the air. You're causing a misunderstanding, that's not the case at all. Keita, however, completely ignored her, continuing his dramatic charade, arms outstretched as if to bar her path. I won't let you pass, he declared. Aurora, the woman from Tokia's negotiating party, fixed the newcomer with a cold, contemptuous glare. It's been a while, she remarked, her voice laced with disdain. At that moment, Kurasu Tokia himself emerged from his room, his eyes falling upon the young woman. A serious expression settled on his face. So, he stated, his voice low, it was you all along. A wicked, almost triumphant smile played on the young woman's lips. She clearly relished the memory of a time long past, when she had publicly rejected and humiliated him in front of everyone. Tokia, though, remained impassive. He knew he had never harbored true feelings for her, yet the sting of her past actions was overshadowed by a new realization. She, too, had now become a player in this dangerous game. A figure approached, a bouquet of vibrant flowers clutched tightly in her hands. It was Tokia, her gaze downcast as she murmured apologies, words tumbling out about the deep regrets she held for the past. From a distance, the powerful entourage, Aurora among them, observing with a keen eye, sensed the raw, genuine hatred radiating from Kurasu. They decided for now to hold their intervention, letting the bitter drama unfold. Beside Kurasu, his loyal friend Keita erupted, his voice cutting through the hushed hospital air. He pointed an accusing finger at Tokia, reminding her of the public humiliation she'd inflicted upon Kurasu in front of the entire school. Tokia's voice was barely a whisper as she pleaded her case, claiming youthful ignorance and foolishness, now shadowed by profound regret for her past actions. But Kurasu, his patience worn thin, cut her off sharply. You're only here, he stated, his voice devoid of emotion, because you saw my name climb the ranks, aren't you? The brutal accusation left Tokia speechless, her face paling as the gazes of everyone present, filled with undeniable disdain, bore down upon her. One of the women in the formidable group, Aurora, saw through Tokia instantly. A single, dismissive glance was enough to brand her an opportunist. Tokia scrambled to defend herself, her pleas desperate. She begged Kurasu not to abandon her, not to leave her to navigate the perilous game alone and vulnerable. Keita, his fury rekindled, shouted, she didn't just reject you, Kurasu, she insulted you, humiliated you in front of everyone. Kurasu gently placed a hand on Keita's shoulder, his voice low and steady. Easy, Keita, we're in a hospital, we need to go. As he turned to leave, Kurasu paused, casting one final cold look at Tokia. Just for the record, he stated, his voice flat, I never liked you, not for a single second. Panic flared in Tokia's eyes. If you save me, she blurted out, desperation lacing her words, I'll let you be my boyfriend, whatever you want. Tokia ran after him, her voice cracking as she vowed unwavering loyalty, promising never to leave his side if only he would help her. But her desperate chase was abruptly halted at the door. Two enormous security guards, stoic and unyielding, blocked her path, their gazes stern and unwelcoming. The men, formidable in their dark suits and sunglasses, formed an impenetrable barrier, their intimidating glares daring her to challenge them. Unfazed by their intimidating presence, Tokia puffed out her chest. I'm Kurasu's girlfriend, she declared, demanding they let her through immediately. From the nearby group, Aurora's voice cut through the tension, a wry remark laced with a hint of amusement. It doesn't quite seem like Mr. Kurasu wants anything to do with you, though. With a decisive nod, the group's leader, Kadi, gave the order. The guards moved with practiced efficiency, escorting the stunned Tokia out of the hospital with swift, undeniable force. Keita punched the air in a small, triumphant gesture. Didn't that feel good, Kurasu? Getting rid of her for good, he whispered, a grin spreading across his face. Kurasu, however, remained serious. His thoughts drifted to another, more pressing matter. Based on his fragmented memories from a past life, she should be in this very hospital now. His steps carried him towards his mother's room, each one a beat closer to a reunion he had yearned for, a moment stretching across time and dimensions. With a swift, almost reverent motion, he pushed open the door, his gaze immediately falling upon the person he had been searching for, the one who tethered him to this life. There, seated by his mother's bedside, was Eureka. A beautiful girl with shimmering white hair and captivating red eyes, she looked at him with a gentle gaze and a soft, welcoming smile. Eureka's beauty was almost ethereal, a soft glow seemingly emanating from her, captivating Kurasu and holding his stare. Kurasu, his mother chirped, a warm smile on her face. Eureka is here to see you again. She's been waiting for your return. A genuine smile touched Kurasu's lips. It's been a long time, hasn't it? He said, a wave accompanying his greeting, though his eyes held a deeper, unarticulated emotion. Eureka, however, tilted her head in confusion. But I was just here last week, Kurasu, she replied, her brow furrowed. It hasn't been that long, has it? The word struck Kurasu like a physical blow. A flood of vivid memories washed over him, Eureka, fading away in his arms in a cruel past life. Emotion welled up, threatening to overwhelm him. Without a word, he pulled her into a tight, desperate embrace, his mind solidifying a silent vow. In this life, he would not let a single person he loved suffer or fare poorly. Eureka was utterly embarrassed by the sudden, intense hug, her cheeks flushing crimson. His mother, meanwhile, simply chuckled, finding the unexpected display of affection undeniably sweet. Keita, witnessing the tender scene, exchanged a puzzled glance with Sumo, who was also present. Are they really just friends? Keita mumbled, because that looks a little suspicious. Later that night, the silver glow of the full moon spilled into the quiet hospital room, casting long shadows across the walls. Kurasu watched his mother, her breathing even and peaceful in her sleep, a wave of profound relief washing over him, knowing she was finally safe and well. He mused on the sudden upgrade to a luxurious VIP room, a testament to the undeniable influence wielded by the powerful group that had aided him earlier. Suddenly, a holographic display flickered into existence before him, counting down. Next dungeon, 63 hours. The countdown solidified a chilling certainty. The next dungeon, he knew with absolute conviction, would mirror the horrifying patterns of his past life. He recalled the new ability he'd acquired, skill maintenance, an intriguing power that activated with a mere touch. To test its limits, Kurasu tentatively placed his hand on the cool metal edge of the hospital bed, eager to discover the full scope of his new skill. A subtle wave of shimmering blue energy radiated from his touch, spreading throughout the room, and Kurasu was surprised by the unexpected surge of power he felt. With a gasp of understanding, he realized his vision was now intricately linked to his touch, allowing him to perceive the hidden details of any object he held. His enhanced vision honed in, immediately pinpointing a flaw. The second screw on the bed's left leg was visibly loose. A slight pang of disappointment hit him. A shame he had no weapons to hand in this sterile hospital room. He yearned to test skill maintenance on something more impactful. Suddenly, an ethereal, mysterious voice echoed directly within his mind, a whisper that reverberated through his very being. "You are qualified to participate." "Who are you?" Kurasu demanded, his thoughts racing. Qualified for what? The sudden intrusion left him bewildered, grasping for understanding. The voice responded with an almost ancient calm, stating he would know its identity in due time. For now, however, a critical decision awaited him. A shadowy, almost spectral silhouette materialized before him, its form indistinct, urging him to decide. Would he accept its special, unprecedented test? His eyes began to glow with an inner light, a surge of realization dawning upon him. This entity, he understood, possessed the immense power required to aid him in his ultimate quest to defeat the god. Without a moment's hesitation, Kurasu accepted. "Begin the challenge immediately," he commanded, his voice firm, ready to face whatever lay ahead. A sinister, knowing smile seemed to stretch across the entity's form. "Very well," it intoned, "the test begins now." But its final words were a chilling warning. "Fail to clear this test, Kurasu, and you can never return to this world." Suddenly, Tokia found himself engulfed, pulled headlong into a swirling vortex of shimmering blue energy. A jolt of surprise coursed through him, recognizing the sacred, potent power radiating from within. He couldn't help but wonder what grand reward awaited him for clearing this enigmatic trial, orchestrated by some unseen dark entity. The blue energy coalesced, forming a towering, ethereal tornado as a disembodied voice echoed, declaring the official commencement of the trial grounds. Without warning, a colossal spike of brilliant blue ice erupted from the very ground beneath him, poised to strike, initiating the deadly dance of this unexpected test. Tokia reacted instinctively, a swift, agile leap carrying him clear of the attack. His gaze hardened, body tensing, ready to face whatever further challenges this mysterious entity had conjured. With a focused and unyielding determination etched on his features, the young hero squared his shoulders, confronting the ominous trial grounds, fully prepared for any adversity that might be thrown his way. His surroundings shifted, and he suddenly stood before a sprawling, dark palace, its ancient stones silhouetted against an alien sky. A frown creased his brow. What was such a place doing in this desolate nowhere? As he pondered, a pulsating mass of blue energy began to coalesce directly before him. Tokia watched the unfolding manifestation with a mixture of caution and curiosity. From within the shimmering energy, the entity's voice boomed, laying out a deceptively simple rule. He had precisely 10 minutes to defeat his opponent. A cryptic piece of advice followed. "Only the wisdom that sees all will guide you to victory in this challenge." Tokia regarded the entity with a serious, unwavering gaze, his mind already shifting gears, preparing for the impending combat. "Let the test begin," the entity declared, and with its pronouncement, a shadowy feminine figure began to slowly materialize from the swirling blue energy. The figure solidified into a formidable, blind swordsman, clad in armor, exuding an aura of invulnerability. Simultaneously, a 10-minute countdown timer flickered into existence. Tokia's eyes narrowed, catching a glimpse of a skeletal form within the armor. He wondered if this spectral warrior, rather than some living being, was truly his adversary. A faint smile touched his lips. The prospect of a clash between the strongest player and the strongest swordsman, a title he presumed for his opponent, was undeniably intriguing. As if in response to his thoughts, a radiant blue sword descended from the heavens, bathed in a celestial beam of light settling into his waiting hand, a weapon for the combat. He gripped the hilt, testing its balance, a satisfied hum escaping him. "It's perfect," he murmured, appreciating the timely arrival of the weapon, eager to test a new ability he'd been itching to use. However, a sterile system notification cut through his enthusiasm. Resonance cannot be activated. Target is not physical. The realization struck him. His desired ability functioned only on tangible, physical entities. And then, a second, more unsettling truth: the magnificent blue sword in his hand was nothing more than an illusion. A determined glint entered his eyes. "No more wasted time," Tokia declared aloud, resolute in his decision to clear this test immediately. The blind swordsman charged, a blur of ancient steel. "Show me the power of the strongest," Tokia challenged, meeting its furious advance head-on. A genuine smile played on his lips as their blades clashed in a furious exchange. "Impressive skill," he praised, acknowledging the formidable prowess of his spectral foe. The swordsman executed a powerful spinning strike, a deadly arc of phantom steel. Tokia parried, his illusory blue blade meeting the blow with a surprising solidity. He observed how the enemy, despite wielding such a large blade, moved with astonishing, almost unnatural speed. The blind swordsman pressed its assault, a relentless barrage of quick, potent strikes that tested every ounce of Tokia's defense. As he dodged and weaved, Tokia pondered if this rapid, overwhelming assault was, in fact, the swordsman's ultimate technique. The swordsman committed to a full-force attack, a devastating swing that Tokia expertly sidestepped, countering with a precise thrust of his own. "Incredible move," he remarked, a hint of strategy in his voice, "but it left your guard wide open." A thought struck him: if his sword was an illusion, was the swordsman itself merely a construct, an ephemeral being? "In that case," he muttered, "I won't feel bad about finishing this." He redoubled his assault, his illusory blade flashing. He delivered what should have been a fatal blow, a strike to the core. Yet the swordsman continued its attack, utterly oblivious, seemingly feeling nothing. A chilling realization dawned on him: his attack had no effect. The title strongest swordsman wasn't just about skill, it implied true invulnerability. Tokia finally understood the true, terrifying meaning behind his opponent's title. This was a foe that, by its very nature, no one could truly defeat through conventional means. With a glance at the dwindling timer, only 5 minutes remained. He wondered desperately what hidden path to victory he had yet to uncover. He continued his agile dance of evasion, his mind racing, desperately trying to devise an effective strategy against an invincible foe. Then the entity's cryptic hint echoed in his memory: "Wisdom that sees all." He knew then it must signify something crucial, the key to this impossible puzzle. Amidst a flurry of parries and dodges, his eyes caught a subtle detail: a small, intricately carved skull seemingly woven into the swordsman's spectral hair. A jolt of surprise ran through him. It clicked: the swordsman was instinctively protecting that skull. This wasn't a weak point in the traditional sense, but its very essence, its vulnerability. With newfound clarity, Tokia understood. The swordsman's unyielding defense, its very existence, was an oath to protect the one represented by that skull, the person behind it. An audacious idea sparked in his mind, and a determined glint returned to his eyes. He prepared to put his daring new plan into motion, a gambit to win this challenge. The entity's voice crackled, dismissive. "A technique of such caliber," it stated, "is unworthy of receiving my special blessing." A wicked, unseen smile seemed to permeate its words. "No matter what swordsmanship you employ," it asserted with chilling certainty, "you cannot win." Ignoring the entity's taunts, Tokia executed a daring leap, soaring over his opponent's head, positioning himself to strike directly at the vulnerable skull. The blind swordsman spun, a sudden, almost human shock rippling through its spectral form as it finally perceived Tokia's true strategy. It raised its greatsword in a desperate attempt to defend. Even the unseen entity registered surprise at the hero's audacious move. This was a defiance it had not anticipated. "Open your eyes," Tokia shouted, his voice ringing with conviction. "See the person you are protecting." The swordsman paused, then slowly, agonizingly turned. Its empty gaze fell upon the skull that all this time had rested unknowingly on its very back, the one it had been sworn to protect. As its perception met the truth of the skull, a heart-wrenching cry of pain and despair ripped from its phantom form. Its body shimmered, beginning to disintegrate. The swordsman clutched the skeletal remains to its chest, a sorrowful, soundless weep escaping it as its form dissolved into a swirling cascade of dust and blue flame. With a mere 51 seconds flickering on the timer, Tokia watched his formidable, yet tragic, opponent vanish into nothingness. "The answer was in the hint," he murmured. "I just needed to make it realize the truth about itself." He understood now. The blue sword, his initial weapon, had been nothing more than a clever misdirection, a red herring in the elaborate test. Turning to face the unseen entity once more, Tokia's voice resonated with confidence. "I've solved your mystery, show yourself." The entity's voice boomed again, this time with a hint of admiration. Congratulations, Tokia. The simplest truths are indeed often the hardest to perceive. It lauded his ingenuity, declaring him worthy of receiving its true, promised blessing. Tokia looked towards the shimmering blue energy, a sense of anticipation building. He wondered, with a growing thrill, what extraordinary power this mysterious entity was about to bestow upon him. A blinding azure energy cascaded over Kurasu Tokia, his very being becoming a conduit, eagerly drawing in the profound new power. The ethereal entity's form seemed to shimmer as it curved into a knowing smile, its voice resonating with an otherworldly echo. The true trial commences now, fortified by this newfound blessing. Tokia, still reeling from the surge of energy, found himself utterly bewildered, his mind grappling with the entity's words about an impending test even after such a profound gift. Then the voice, now a whisper that seemed to emanate from everywhere and nowhere, commanded him to open his senses, to truly feel the collective emotions of all living beings, for only then could he truly accept the power of a god. An overwhelming torrent crashed over him. The pain, the joy, the fierce anger, and the profound sadness of countless souls converged within his consciousness, all at once. The sheer magnitude of these interwoven emotions became too much to bear. A shimmering glass barrier around him fractured into oblivion, and he was violently flung into an entirely new, terrifying realm. Kurasu Tokia stumbled, landing amidst an endless expanse of bleached skulls and the anguished visages of suffering souls, his mind racing to comprehend the horror unfolding before him. In that chilling moment, a profound realization dawned upon him. The true power of a god was not some abstract force, but the tangible manifestation of the faith and raw emotions of all those living on earth. As his gaze swept over the tormented souls surrounding him, he understood with a chilling certainty that this was indeed a power of unimaginable, terrifying magnitude. Though his face was bruised and a trickle of blood marred his temple, he met this grim new challenge with a gaze that was both serious and unshakably determined. A confident, almost fierce smile touched his lips as he declared that with this immense power now flowing through him, he could finally stand against the evil god. He then vowed with unwavering conviction that the gods of earth would have his unwavering support in their impending confrontation against the malevolent deity. The entity's voice returned, heavy with finality, announcing this to be the ultimate trial, a challenge no mere human could possibly endure. Then, with a deafening roar, an explosion of pure energy erupted, engulfing Kurasu Tokia in a blinding, incandescent light. A ripple of genuine surprise emanated from the entity, unable to fathom how the young man could possibly still be standing amidst the dissipating aftermath. From the swirling debris, Kurasu Tokia slowly rose, battered but unbroken, a wry admission on his lips that such power was indeed impossible for any to truly withstand. A defiant smirk played across his bruised face as he provocatively challenged the entity, asking if that was truly the extent of its formidable might. The voice returned, imbued with a newfound respect, congratulating him heartily. It stated that he was, as anticipated, the human they had acknowledged truly deserving of this honor. He had obtained its blessing, and he must engrave its name into his memory for what was yet to come. The entity then made a grand promise, declaring that when he was finally recognized by their collective, he would be granted the true supreme blessing. Kurasu Tokia furrowed his brow, perplexed by the mention of a supreme blessing and the entity's enigmatic name which still eluded him. He opened his mouth to inquire about the voice's identity, but before he could utter a sound, the entity dissolved into a flurry of soft, white, glowing feathers, vanishing completely. Back in the quiet confines of his hospital room, Kurasu Tokia jolted awake, gasping for air, his mind still racing with the question of what extraordinary blessing he had truly received. In that instant, a translucent system screen materialized before his eyes, and he stared at it, a serious yet profoundly curious expression etched upon his face. The glowing text on the screen revealed an astonishing truth. He had gained the blessing of the mental guardian, and his patron was none other than the seraph Gabriel. A satisfied smile spread across his lips as he considered the implications. This new blessing would undoubtedly prove invaluable in the battles that lay ahead. Yet despite his immediate satisfaction, a deeper yearning persisted. He found himself far more eager to pursue the supreme blessing that Gabriel had hinted at during his arduous test. Then a chilling revelation struck him. The mental torment that had plagued him for so long was not an illness at all, but rather the desperate voices of the gods of Earth themselves. A determined glint in his eye, he cast a glance at the system's 23-hour countdown for the dungeon's opening. Just then, Keita, his friend, burst into the room, utterly shocked, exclaiming that there was even a video version of the guide now circulating. Kurasu Tokia chuckled, giving Keita a light, playful smack on the head, reminding him with a whisper to keep his voice down, for they were still in a hospital. Keita, still vibrating with excitement, declared how deeply moved he had been by the video, praising its production as simply breathtaking. His mother, observing their easy camaraderie, offered a warm smile, commenting on how wonderfully the two young men got along as the best of friends. Tokia mused silently, impressed by the group's swift action, noting that the guide's video was already spreading like wildfire across all networks. He also observed that they had forged a powerful alliance with the government, successfully establishing a new official management agency. Studying the newly revealed player rankings, he considered that this could serve as a powerful catalyst, inspiring countless other players to join the cause. Abruptly, the nurse entered, her voice calm as she informed him that a car had arrived outside specifically to pick him up. Keita, quick as lightning, rushed to the window, his eyes widening as he confirmed that the powerful group had indeed come to collect his partner. His eyes sparkling with unadulterated excitement, Keita let out a shout, proclaiming it true and marveling at the truly impressive sight outside. Just beyond the hospital doors, a sleek limousine and several imposing black cars, flanked by stern-faced security guards, awaited the protagonist. Aurora, the woman from the mysterious group, spoke to one of the aides, asking him to inform Tokia that she had come personally to ensure his comfortable transport. Keita, having relayed the message, dashed back into the room, breathlessly announcing that all three key figures from the powerful group had arrived to retrieve him from the hospital. Kurasu Tokia rose from his bed, a calm understanding in his gaze, stating that he comprehended the situation and would be down to meet them shortly. His mother, a tremor of concern in her voice, pleaded with him not to involve himself in anything illicit, to keep his hands clean of any crime. He offered her a gentle, reassuring smile, urging her not to fret, for he had done nothing wrong, nor would he. With a playful glint in his eye, he then added with a smile that he was, in fact, merely saving the world, a revelation that left his mother utterly bewildered. His expression then turned serious, profound, as he declared that soon enough everyone would come to know the truth. With that, he offered his heartfelt goodbyes. Kade, the group's leader, escorted him to a sprawling mansion, pointing out the exquisite organic food and the breathtaking, meticulously sculpted landscape. Kade further informed him that for their absolute security and comfort, guards and maids would be on duty, vigilant, 24 hours a day. Keita, utterly shell-shocked by the opulence, could only gape, his mind boggling at the sheer cost such an extravagant house must command. Kade, a subtle hint of pride in his voice, clarified that the property belonged to him alone and thus could not possibly be found on any market. Keita, completely losing his composure, practically shrieked, asking if that meant the mansion was truly one of a kind, an exclusive treasure unparalleled in the entire world. Kurasu Tokia, seemingly unfazed by Keita's outburst, simply turned to Kade, asking him to reveal the other properties and provisions he had in mind. From a discreet distance, the other two members of the group, a man named Sumo and the woman Aurora, observed the interaction, meticulously preparing their own forthcoming offers. Sumo, the man in the impeccably tailored suit, commented wryly that it appeared to be a polite rejection, while Aurora, with a glint in her eye, confidently declared that she would ultimately be the one to win Tokia over. With a confident, almost arrogant smile, Kade stated that the particular house he had chosen for Tokia was something no discerning young person could possibly refuse. Their guide led them to a magnificent skyscraper that seemed to pierce the clouds. "A place like this," he said with a grand gesture, "is the only kind of place fitting for you." From the top floor, the city spread out below them like a glittering map. The hero's friend pressed his face to the glass, his voice filled with awe. "Whoa, you can see the whole city from here." The man puffed his chest out with pride. "Of course, this is the very heart of the city, a masterpiece designed by a world-famous architect." He then gave them a triumphant smile, "And the largest penthouse suite is already prepared in your name." His friend's jaw dropped. "Wait, you mean there's more?" With a dramatic flair, the man snapped his fingers, as if summoning magic itself. In that instant, a group of beautiful maids appeared as if from thin air. They bowed in perfect unison, their voices sweet as they introduced themselves as the hero's new personal servants. His friend's eyes practically turned into hearts. "So many goddesses," he stammered, completely starstruck. The maids gracefully surrounded the hero. "You are so handsome," one said. "Please command us as you wish," another added. The two rivals who had brought them there stood in stunned silence. A single thought echoed in their minds: why didn't we think of that? A smug grin spread across the guide's face. No man on earth, he thought, could possibly refuse an offer like this. But the hero's gaze was as cold as ice. Without even glancing at the maids, he simply said, "Show me the next option." The man's smile froze on his face. He stared, utterly baffled, unable to process what he had just heard. He refused. Watching from the side, a small, knowing smile touched the woman's lips. So Mr. Krasu really is different from the rest, she thought. The blond man's shock quickly turned into renewed hope. He saw an opening, a chance to still win the young man over. The woman then stepped forward, her voice gentle. "The place I've chosen isn't luxurious," she said, "but would you please come with me?" She explained that she had done some research into his family's past, and now she was taking him somewhere very special. When they finally arrived, she looked at him with a kind and gentle smile. "Does this place seem familiar to you?" Before the hero could answer, his friend's eyes went wide with recognition. "Hey, this is the house you grew up in." The other two men looked on, their faces pale. In that moment they knew the game was over, they had lost. "The house has changed owners many times," the woman explained softly, "so the inside isn't quite the same anymore. But," she continued, "I tried my best to restore everything to make it feel just like your memories so you could feel comfortable here." A wave of emotion washed over the hero's face. "This is incredible," he whispered, looking around. "It's almost exactly like I remember it." He turned to her, a rare, genuine smile gracing his lips. "Thank you." The woman's heart soared, truly happy that he liked her gift. The two men who had tried to compete could only look on with utter despair, crushed by how perfectly they had been defeated. Snapping back to business, the hero called out to his friend, "Hey, bring me the guide for the next dungeon." The woman watched in surprise as he began pulling a thick stack of papers from inside his pants. "What in the world is that?" she asked. His friend grinned proudly. "Oh, it's just the complete strategy guide for the game's second dungeon. He wrote it all himself." She stared, a mix of shock and disbelief on her face. "You kept something so important in there." After a moment she composed herself. "So, are you going to release this one to the public as well?" "No," he replied, shaking his head. "We'll only give this guide to players we think show real promise." He explained his thinking. "To get stronger in this world, you have to truly understand the game. You can't just get by on blind luck. Those who have only been lucky so far," the hero continued, "won't last long, they will be eliminated. To find the truly excellent players, we just need to give the newbies a little help to get on their feet. If they are truly great," he finished, his voice firm, "they will naturally rise to the top on their own." The woman's eyes lit up as she understood his grand plan. "I see, and what do you plan to do once you've gathered all these skilled players?" With a fire in his eyes, the hero looked toward the horizon. "I'm going to ask them to help me save this world." The entire group was left speechless. Saving the world, it was an unbelievably ambitious dream. A glowing countdown timer suddenly appeared in the air. "It's almost time," his friend shouted, breaking the silence. "We're ready to go." The protagonist turned and pulled his mother into a tight hug. "I'll be back soon, Mom," he promised. "I'll come home." His friend struck a dramatic pose, puffing out his chest. "I'm off on a grand adventure to another world." His mother just watched them, completely confused by the strange scene. As the countdown hit 0, a robotic voice echoed through the room. "Selected players will now be transported." A brilliant pillar of blue light enveloped the two of them. They waved one last goodbye to his mother as their bodies began to fade away. "Listen," the hero said to his friend as they were teleported, "we'll be acting separately this time. You should be able to clear this dungeon on your own." His friend shot back a confident grin. "Don't worry about me, I'll be keeping an eye on the rankings. This time I'll definitely get my name on that list." A confident smirk appeared on the protagonist's face as he faced the entrance to the new dungeon, ready for the next challenge. He recognized the place immediately. It was just like in his past life. The second dungeon was the D-Class Frosty Mansion. The system's voice rang out. "Scene creation complete. Player souls have been successfully loaded." "Just as I thought," the hero mused to himself. "The official instructions are meant to mislead everyone again." He knew from experience that to clear this dungeon, you couldn't go it alone. You needed a partner, someone you trusted completely. The real strategy was to lure the two bosses from their separate floors and make them meet in the very middle of the mansion. But the thought of trust brought a flicker of a painful memory from his past life, the moment he was betrayed by an ally he called a friend. His expression hardened with determination. He pulled out a shimmering golden card, ready to call upon the one person in existence he truly trusted. As the special team summoning card activated, an intense golden glow flooded the entire area. Particles of light swirled and gathered, forming the figure of a white-haired girl who looked up and met the protagonist's gaze. They stared at each other in stunned silence. The girl's eyes were wide with shock and disbelief to see him standing there. You, she finally whispered, her voice trembling as she struggled to understand. Why are you here? Where are we? It was me, he began to explain. I was the one who brought you into this dungeon. I knew you were trapped on that island. He couldn't help but think about how Eureka had been forced into the game, and how much she had suffered because of it. The image of her struggling to survive on that island was burned into his mind, a memory of a life filled with scars that would never truly fade. That's why he had to do this. I called you here to change your destiny, he said, his voice firm. I won't let you get hurt ever again. She stared at him, completely stunned. The island, but how could you possibly know about that? I never told you. In that very moment, a familiar blue window flickered into existence before her eyes, and she looked at it with a growing sense of wonder. Words of light appeared on the screen, welcoming her to the Frosty Mansion, a place it called a D-class dungeon. Her mind raced, connecting the screen to the videos she had seen online. She tried to recall the name of that strange and dangerous game. It's called Prison Day, he answered her unspoken question, her eyes widened in recognition. That's it, she whispered. He looked at her seriously, explaining, I needed a partner I could trust with my very life. That's why I chose you and only you. As the great door before them began to tremble, he extended his hand. Be my partner, he said. Let's face this together. His words echoed in her memory, reminding her of a time long ago when he had asked her a similar question. She looked at him with a soft, tender expression. She remembered how sad and alone she had felt back then, until he appeared, reached out his hand, and simply asked her to play. Now he repeated that simple invitation, his voice gentle. So, will you play with me again, just like in the old days? Her eyes filled with emotion as she remembered all the good times they had shared, moments of light in a lonely world. She reached out and took his hand, her grip tight and sure. In that single touch, she gave him her answer. A brilliant smile lit up her face. I would love to be your partner, she said, her voice full of a joy she hadn't felt in years. As the door groaned, ready to swing open, he turned to her. Did you memorize everything I told you? He asked, his tone shifting to business. She nodded confidently. It's an exploration game, she recited, and I shouldn't touch anything carelessly. She also remembered his most important warning. This place wasn't a mansion, but a giant, twisting maze filled with monsters. To clear it, she finished, we have to make the boss from the top floor meet the boss from the basement, right here in the middle. Exactly, he confirmed, his eyes fixed on the door. I'm opening it now. The white-haired girl nodded back, full of resolve. Okay, I'll do my best to help. The countdown hit 0. He pushed the heavy doors, and together they stepped into the biting cold of the Frosty Mansion. The hallway was a world of ice. The floors were slick and frozen, and sharp icicles hung from the ceiling like 1,000 daggers. It's so cold, the young woman shivered. He offered a comforting smile. Don't worry, there's a card that will make it better. Just then, a dark shadow darted past a doorway. He instantly tensed, preparing for the encounter he knew was coming. He thought to himself, just as he had predicted, the man who had betrayed him in his past life was also here in this dungeon. A man holding a knife stepped into the light, muttering about the cold and nervously wondering where the monsters were. Then he spotted them, and his face lit up with surprise. He hadn't expected to find other people here. A friendly smile spread across his face as he walked toward them. Hey, he called out, are you two players as well? The protagonist knew this act well. He would ask to form a team, pretending to be a trustworthy and honest person. But behind that friendly mask was a shameless coward, a man who wouldn't hesitate to betray his own teammates to save himself. He vividly remembered how this man used to hide behind his back during every battle, too weak and scared to fight for himself. A faint smirk appeared on the protagonist's lips. He was ready because he knew exactly what was about to happen. He recalled the moment he had used all his strength to take down a boss, only to feel a sharp blade plunge into his back. The traitor had backstabbed him without a second thought, all just to steal a single skill card. Tokia reflected on that moment. If it hadn't been for one other person, his life would have ended right there on that cold floor. Back in the present, the traitor was making his pitch. We should team up, he suggested. It'll be easier to deal with monsters together. But his real plan was to get the hero out of the way so he could have the beautiful girl all to himself. The man's greedy eyes also fell upon the protagonist's sword, and he quietly promised himself he would take it. With a fake, warm smile, he held out his hand. In a game like this, he said kindly, we all need to cooperate to survive. But the protagonist simply stared back and said, you stabbed me first, now I'm just returning the favor. Before the traitor could even react, a blade pierced his chest. His eyes widened in pure shock as the pain hit him. With a gaze as cold as the frozen hall, the hero leaned in close. "Now you get to feel the same thing I felt." He then turned to his partner, his expression calm and steady. "Do you have any questions?" he asked her. She simply shook her head, her trust in him absolute. "No, I'm sure you had a good reason." "Good," he said, turning away from the body. "Let's go find some skill cards." She immediately agreed, ready to move on. And so, leaving the traitor's body to the ice, they continued their journey deeper into the frosty mansion. In a different place entirely, a man in glasses watched a screen. So, he mused, the information on Kurasu Tokia, the #1 player, was correct. He, a man known as the Observer Shujimaratsuki, wondered if this boy who gave away game guides for free was truly worthy of his attention. Staring at the player rankings, the man with glasses sighed. He just couldn't seem to understand what the hero was planning. Back inside the mansion, the two heroes froze. They felt a strange and menacing presence. A monster was very close. A terrifying creature called the Hanged Man appeared from the shadows. "Look out," Eureka screamed, "it's coming for us." With its glowing eye and razor-sharp claws, the monster charged forward, intent on tearing them to pieces. The girl screamed her partner's name, grabbing onto his arm as the creature lunged. But the monster never stood a chance. A powerful punch met it head-on, sending it flying backward down the hall. The protagonist looked at the creature with a bored expression. "You're too loud," he said simply. "It's annoying." He then raised his hand, and a brilliant beam of energy shot out, hitting the monster dead center. The blast tore straight through the creature and slammed into the wall behind it, causing a massive explosion of ice and light. The monster dissolved into glowing particles, leaving behind a single floating prize, a vigor card. Eureka stared in utter shock at how effortless it all was. "Is this," she stammered, "how you've always fought in dungeons?" "That was nothing," he replied, shaking his head. "This one was just unusually weak, barely a monster at all." Her eyes lit up with excitement at the thought. "You mean there are even stronger ones?" she asked, a thrill running through her. It felt like she was the star of her very own horror movie. He held out the glowing card to her. "Here," he said, "take this and concentrate, the skill will become yours." She took the golden card, its surface smooth in her hand. It was still hard to believe that a monster like that could be hiding inside a normal apartment building. Closing her eyes, she focused all of her thoughts on the card, hoping with all her might that she could draw out its hidden power. Suddenly, a warm, golden light washed over her. Her eyes snapped open in shock. It worked, she had actually done it. A glowing panel appeared in the air before her, displaying a new line of text, Stamina, Level 1. "You're a fast learner," he said with an approving nod. "Come on, let's head to the next floor of the Frosty Mansion." As they walked, she noticed that the biting chill in the air didn't seem so bad anymore. A smile spread across her face, happy that her new skill was already working. She looked over at him, her curiosity growing. "How do you know so much about this place? Are you a big fan of this game or something?" He stopped walking and turned to look at her, his face completely blank. The sudden silence was strange, and it left her feeling confused. His expression was somber as he stared, not saying a single word in response to her question. The heavy silence made Eureka nervous. Did I say something weird?" she asked quietly. "This game isn't meant to be interesting," he finally said, his voice cold. "We need to remember why we're really here." His gaze was sharp and determined like chips of ice. "Our purpose," he revealed, "is to destroy this game." She fell silent, trying to process his words. After a moment, she looked at him and nodded. "I don't understand," she said, "but I trust you." Without warning, a massive, monstrous hand crashed through a nearby ice wall, its claws reaching for them. The creature let out a horrifying roar as it charged out of the hole, lunging straight for his partner. But in a flash, he moved, stepping directly in front of her to act as a shield against the monster's brutal attack. He didn't even seem to struggle. With one hand, he caught the creature by its face, stopping its forward charge completely. With a single, powerful squeeze, he crushed the monster's head, which shattered into 1,000 tiny pieces before their eyes. "It's a shame that one didn't have a card for you," he remarked calmly. "That's the real challenge of this dungeon." "But don't worry," he added. "The boss on each floor is guaranteed to drop one. Let's go find it." Meanwhile, in other parts of the icy labyrinth, different players were wandering in circles, completely lost and unsure of what to do. Eureka realized with a start that they weren't lost at all. He knew exactly where he was going. He was incredible. "The mansion isn't too hard at the beginning," he explained as they walked. The temperature only drops 1 degree every 5 minutes. But the longer we stay, the colder it gets, and the harder it becomes for everyone to survive. On top of that, he continued, if we don't find the floor boss, the door to the next level will never open. In the end, any player who gets trapped here will simply freeze to death. The thought of everyone freezing sent a shiver of terror down her spine, but his expression remained calm and completely focused. He knew the temperature drops would get faster soon, but he also remembered exactly where the boss was hiding. And with that, the two of them pressed forward, determined to find the boss and take it down as fast as possible. From a safe distance, a man in glasses watched them, trying to understand the hero's true motivations. He had to have some kind of special ability. The man hoped that the #1 ranked player wouldn't end up being a disappointment. Deep inside the frozen labyrinth, the two continued their journey through the twisting, dangerous halls of the icy mansion. The protagonist could sense that the first floor boss was nearby. He just needed to figure out how to lure it into a fight. Suddenly, a young man with red hair stepped out from behind a corner, calling out his name and surprising them both. "Hey, I'm talking to you," the redhead said with an arrogant sneer. "Are you going to answer me?" His partner leaned over and whispered, "Do you know that guy?" Tokia simply shook his head. "No." The redhead grew angry at being ignored. "You shouldn't underestimate me," he yelled. "I'm in the rankings." Far away, the man in the suit watched the scene with interest. He wondered what this new player's rank could possibly be. "I've memorized the top 10 players," the protagonist said flatly, "and you're not one of them. What's your rank?" The young man puffed out his chest proudly. "The name's Jiang Shuo. I'm ranked 783, but I'm going to be #1. The hero and his partner just stared at him, their faces showing absolutely no emotion as they heard his rank. The man in the suit let out an annoyed sigh. He had wasted his time worrying over a complete nobody. "What do you want, 783? Tokia asked, his voice bored. The redhead pointed a finger at him and shouted, "I came here to defeat you. I'm going to show the world that your #1 rank was nothing but a fluke." But before he could make a move, the hero threw a lazy, casual punch that landed squarely on his face. The force from that single blow sent the redhead and his friends behind him tumbling backward onto the hard, icy floor. "Get lost," the protagonist said, looking completely bored. "I'm busy." The redhead scrambled back to his feet and pulled out a knife. "I never gave you permission to leave," he snarled. His friends began to cheer him on. "My target is him," the young man said to his group. "You guys can have fun with the girl." With a fresh bruise already forming on his face, he screamed, "I'm going to pay you back for that punch 100 times over." Tokia sighed. These guys weren't really evil, just a bunch of idiots. It looked like he'd have to teach them a lesson. With a powerful kick, he shattered a nearby metal door, then reached inside and grabbed a heavy steel pipe to use as a weapon. He gripped the makeshift weapon tightly in his hand, getting ready for the fight against these troublemakers. A small smirk appeared on his face. "With this simple pipe," he said, his voice low, "I'm going to punish every last one of you." This is perfect, he thought. He needed a way to draw the floor boss out, and this noisy group was just the bait he needed. It was also a good chance to test out his new skill. Focusing his energy, he activated Tool Resonance. A system window popped up, labeling the metal pipe as useless junk. However, it also said that the more he used it, the stronger its resonance would become. He found the ability to evaluate items fascinating and made a mental note to use this skill more often. The red-haired leader glared at him with a sneer. "You think you can take us on with that piece of trash? You'll regret not using your sword." He remained completely calm, his gaze sweeping over the loudmouths with a look of pure contempt. Furious at the disrespect, the leader screamed at his friends, "What are you all waiting for? Get him." But his friends were terrified. They nervously shoved their leader forward, muttering, "You go first." Annoyed by their cowardice, the redhead spun around and yelled, "Don't just stand there, you useless fools, attack." One of his followers stammered, "But that's the #1 rank in the world, we don't stand a chance." "I don't care what his rank is," the leader roared, his pride wounded. "I won't be satisfied until I'm the one who takes him down." Gripping his knife tightly, he charged forward all by himself. "Rank 1 means nothing," he screamed. "You're nothing." Our hero watched the reckless charge with a bored expression. This was going exactly as planned. The louder his screams, the better the chance of luring out the real target. With a single, almost lazy motion, he swung the metal pipe, which connected with a solid thud. "You should try using your head for more than just shouting," he said calmly. The young man's face twisted in agony, his eyes wide with shock. He was left completely speechless by the sheer force of the blow. He crumpled to his knees, a raw scream of pain tearing from his throat. Everyone else just stared, stunned by the sudden turn of events. "Now that's a good scream," the hero remarked casually, looking around the cavern. "Loud enough for the boss to hear, I bet." As if on cue, a thick green tentacle shot out from the shadows, moving with terrifying speed right for the fallen man. It coiled around the redhead's body in an instant, squeezing the air from his lungs and turning his cries of pain into gasps of pure terror. He was dragged away into the darkness, completely helpless against the creature's immense strength. His friends finally snapped out of their shock, their faces pale with fear. "Someone do something, save him," they yelled in a panic. Eureka turned to her companion, her voice trembling slightly. What was that thing?" "That," he said, his eyes fixed on the darkness, "is the floor boss. If we beat it, we can move on to the next level." He started walking calmly toward the commotion. "Come on," he called over his shoulder, "no need to rush." But his calm pace was deceivingly fast. She struggled to keep up, wondering if this incredible speed was the true power of a high-level player. For a moment, she imagined herself as a superhero, a thrill of excitement running through her at the thought of having such amazing powers. Watching from a safe distance, a man in glasses looked on with admiration. "Did he really come all this way just to hunt the boss?" he murmured to himself. The man, dressed in a neat suit, made a firm decision right then and there. He had to find a way to join that hero's team. Meanwhile, the redhead's friends were shouting at the unseen monster, "Let him go, you're crushing him." Their desperate voices echoed in the darkness as they pleaded with the creature to release their leader from its deadly grip. Trying to sound brave, one of them pointed a trembling finger into the shadows. "You let him go right now, or I'll finish you." Fueled by a surge of adrenaline, he then charged forward, hoping he could somehow save his friend. But the monster simply lashed out, sending the entire group flying backwards with a single brutal swipe. With the grunts out of the way, the floor boss finally revealed itself. A massive, mutated carnivorous plant, its status glowing ominously as rank E+. The plant's giant mouth opened wide, pulling the redhead inside as he screamed desperately for help. Trapped and terrified, the young man saw a figure calmly walking toward the monster. It was the very person he had just tried to attack. The hero now stood before the monstrous plant, his sword finally drawn and gleaming in the dim light. He was ready for the real fight to begin. Despair washed over the redhead. After everything he'd said and done, why would this man possibly save him now? Without a moment's hesitation, the hero lunged forward, his blade cutting cleanly through the plant's thick, flailing tentacles. He followed up with a powerful swing, unleashing a brilliant arc of blue energy that sliced through the air toward the monster. The creature let out a horrifying shriek as the energy wave cut it completely in two. Suddenly free, the redhead fell to the ground, staring in disbelief. He had just been saved by the man he called his rival. But as the shock faded, he realized that being rescued so effortlessly was somehow more humiliating than being defeated. The hero looked down at him. "Get up. If you really want to fight me, make it into the top 10, then I'll use my sword." The challenge was clear. Get strong enough to be his equal, and only then would they have a proper duel. The redhead stayed on the ground for a moment, letting the hero's words sink in. A new fire lit in his eyes. He looked up, his voice filled with determination. "I'll get there, and thank you." With the boss gone, a new passage opened up, glowing with a strange light and splitting into two different routes. One path led upward toward a battle with mutant monsters. The other led down into a realm of terrifying ghosts. Just then, his partner finally caught up, out of breath. A system notification appeared, warning them they had little time to make a choice. The young woman looked from one ominous path to the other. "Mutants or ghosts?" she asked, her voice filled with dread. "Which horrible option do we pick?" The redhead, now back on his feet, glanced at her. He noticed that despite her worried words, her eyes were sparkling with excitement. "Monsters and ghosts," she said, unable to hide her grin. "Both of them sound like so much fun." Her smile widened as she thought about it. "I wonder," she mused aloud, "if he thinks I'm weird for being this excited." He turned to her with a serious expression. "It doesn't matter what I think. Which path do you want to take?" Faced with the direct question, the young woman suddenly panicked. I don't know, I can't choose." At that moment, a new voice cut in. "Perhaps I could be of assistance." The man with the glasses stepped out from the shadows. "May I join your party?" "My name is Shijimori Itsuki," he said with a polite bow. "Rank 34, I assure you I can be very useful on your journey." "So you finally decided to show yourself," the hero says, a knowing look on his face. His partner gasps, her eyes wide with shock as she takes in the newcomer's impressive rank. Nearby, the red-haired man just scoffs at the number. He smirks, boasting that a rank like that is nothing. He's destined to be in the top 10 someday. The hero calmly explains that he knew someone was tailing them. He had noticed the presence for a while but chose to ignore it until now. A memory flashes through his mind, a scene from a life he lived before. He remembers this man with glasses, the one who saved him when all hope seemed lost. Shijimori Itsuki, the man with the glasses, is taken aback. He hadn't expected to be found out so easily and looks at the young hero with a newfound curiosity. The hero's thoughts drift back to that dark time. He remembers the sting of betrayal, the cold certainty that he was about to die at the hands of someone he once called an ally. But just as his life was about to end, this man appeared. He had stepped in, declaring that a talent like his was far too precious to be wasted. The light glinted off his glasses as he made a promise. "Follow my orders," he had said, "and I will see to it that you clear this dungeon." And just like that, with his guidance, the hero had overcome every obstacle, clearing the dungeon one step at a time. In the midst of all that chaos, the man with the glasses had been his savior, a beacon of hope in the darkness. But even someone so brilliant, so capable, couldn't escape the cruelty of this deadly game. In the end, he too had lost his life. It was in that moment the hero learned a harsh lesson. It didn't matter how strong you were or how clever you played. To the dark gods pulling the strings, all players were nothing more than toys, puppets for their twisted amusement. Snapping back to the present, the man with the glasses notices the look on the hero's face. "Is something wrong?" he asks, his voice calm. He can't help but wonder why the world's #1 player would even pay attention to someone like him, a mere rank 34. But the hero simply smiles. "I'm always looking for strong allies," he says, "and I could use a fierce warrior like you on my team." He holds out a few cards, a small gesture of welcome. The man with the glasses, however, politely shakes his head and declines the offer. The hero thinks to himself, "You saved me in my past life. This time it's my turn to save you." After a moment, a small smile appears on Shijimori Itsuki's face. "Mr. Takia, you are indeed very strong," he says, changing his mind and accepting the cards. But instead of keeping them, he turns, and with that same gentle smile, offers the cards to the hero's partner. The young woman's eyes light up with pure excitement. "With these," she exclaims, "I can become a superhero too." Yet she hesitates, her hand hovering over the cards. She glances back at her friend, seeking his approval before she accepts. He gives her a reassuring nod. "Do as you wish," he tells her gently. "You need these to become stronger." A radiant smile breaks across her face. "Thank you," she says, gratefully taking the cards from her new teammate. "No, I should be the one thanking you," Shijimori Itsuki says. In his mind he thinks, perhaps, I can trust them just a little. He makes a mental note to himself. When they get back to the real world, he'll have to find a proper gift to show his gratitude. The hero interrupts their moment, his tone serious. "The boss on the next floor is even stronger. We can't afford to waste any more time here." His two companions nod in agreement, their expressions turning serious as they prepare to follow his lead. Watching from the sidelines, the red-haired man's eyes gleam with excitement. "If even that four-eyed guy can join Asterisk," he thinks, "then surely they'll accept me." Convinced of his own genius, he puffs out his chest and gets ready to ask the #1 player if he can join their group. He raises his hand eagerly. "Hey, let me join your group. I want to fight alongside you in this dungeon." The hero doesn't even hesitate. He turns, his gaze cold and direct, and says, "Get out of my sight." The red-haired man is left completely speechless, his jaw hanging open. He can't believe he was just rejected so bluntly. Shijimori turns his attention back to the hero. "Are you familiar with this dungeon?" he asks. The hero nods. "Its structure is simple enough. This mansion has 7 floors, he explains. We've been on the 4th floor this whole time." The man with the glasses looks surprised. "If you know that much," he asks, "do you also know the final boss's weakness?" The hero's expression grows grim. "There are 2 final bosses," he reveals, "and you can't defeat them with normal attacks. The only way to clear this dungeon," he continues, "is to make the boss on the lower floor run into the boss on the upper floor." Shijimori is shocked by this strategy. He quickly realizes that to do this, they would have to split up into 2 groups. "No," the hero says, shaking his head. "The plan is to attack the lower floor first and then rush up together." He explains that by doing it this way, they can force the 2 bosses to meet while keeping the risk to themselves as low as possible. The man with the glasses is deeply impressed. He murmurs, "This is a strategy that only someone like you, Tokia, could ever pull off." Yurika's eyes widen as she understands. "Wait," she says, "your first plan was to lure both bosses and fight the last one all by yourself, wasn't it?" The hero nods, confirming her suspicion. "But I changed to a safer plan," he adds softly. "Your safety is more important." A warm smile spreads across the young woman's face. "Thank you," she says, her voice full of gratitude. "That's very kind of you to worry about me." Just then she lets out a sudden sneeze. "Achoo, it's so cold on this floor," she complains, shivering. "I'm freezing even with my stats," the girl says, rubbing her arms. As she speaks, her status panel flickers into view. "The temperature here drops almost twice as fast as it did on the first floor," the hero explains matter-of-factly. They all look at each other and nod. The plan is clear: defeat this boss as quickly as possible and get moving. Suddenly, from the deep shadows ahead, a single glowing blue eye snaps open, watching the group with an icy stare. A massive creature steps out of the darkness. It's an enormous white wolf, its powerful eyes glowing with the same chilling blue light. And it's not alone. A horde of ghostly figures, their eyes glowing an eerie purple, materializes around it, ready to swarm the players. Shujimori stares in disbelief. He can't help but wonder how the hero managed to find the boss so quickly in this vast, confusing labyrinth. "This is a path I learned with my life on the line," the hero says, his voice low. "It's not something I could ever forget." The man with the glasses is stunned by his words, a thought crossing his mind. Could it be that he's been here before, even before this game started? A panel appears above the wolf, revealing it as a D-rank boss with frighteningly high power and speed stats. "They're coming," the hero shouts, turning to his companions. "Both of you just focus on defending yourselves." "Don't worry about us," Shujimori replies, his stance firm. "I'll protect Yurika with my life." Hearing this, the hero feels a weight lift from his shoulders. At least he knows his partner will be safe while he fights. His sword begins to glow with a brilliant blue energy. Without a moment's hesitation, the hero charges forward, aiming straight for the enormous white wolf. He issues a silent challenge to the beast, and the monster answers with a furious, deafening roar that shakes the very floor. Not wasting a single second, the hero leaps and brings his sword down, landing a precise and powerful strike right on the giant wolf's head. At the same time, the ghosts with the glowing purple eyes let out a collective shriek and begin to surge forward, ready to attack. Shujimori moves in a flash, planting himself directly in front of Yurika, creating a human shield between her and the oncoming monsters. His movements are swift and precise as he engages the ghosts, his hands and feet becoming a blur of motion as he uses martial arts to fight them off. "I am the 9th successor of Bagua Jang," he declares with confidence. "Creatures like you are no match for me." He glances back at Yurika with a confident smile. "Don't you worry," he says. "I'll take care of these things in no time." But to everyone's surprise, the girl suddenly steps forward and lands a powerful punch of her own, sending one of the ghosts flying with ease. Her eyes widen in excitement as she realizes her newfound strength is enough to defeat these monsters on her own. The man with the glasses watches her, surprised. He thinks to himself, just like Tokia, this girl is also full of mysteries. A powerful blast of blue energy struck the white-furred beast head-on, sending it staggering backward. Amid the chaos of the battle, Tokia stood his ground before the giant wolf. The creature let out a furious roar, its breath hot and menacing. A confident smirk played on Takia's lips. He declared to his companions that the creature was as good as defeated. He pressed on with a relentless barrage of attacks. The giant monster howled in pain, unable to defend itself against the onslaught. From the sidelines, Shujimori watched the fight unfold. He noticed something strange. Takia was intentionally avoiding the wolf's vital spots. This led him to wonder if simply defeating the monster was not the key to moving forward. A chill ran down his spine, and it wasn't just from the plunging temperature. He feared they wouldn't all survive if this continued much longer. Utterly confused, he struggled to understand what Takia's true objective could be. Meanwhile, Takia, enveloped in a crackling blue aura, continued his precise assault on the giant wolf. He knew that killing this beast would only enrage the boss on the floor below. However, there was a hidden path. If he could incapacitate the creature without landing the final blow, a secret mission would trigger. The goal was to leave the wolf with exactly 1% of its health remaining. Suddenly, a system notification flashed before them. The boss was charging its special attack, Gale Roar. Shujimori's voice cut through the air, shouting a warning to Takia. The monster was about to unleash its ultimate attack, and he needed to take cover immediately. With a deafening howl, the white wolf unleashed a massive, swirling gust of wind. Yet Takia stood his ground, unmoving. He calmly told Shujimori not to worry about him and to focus on protecting Yurika. Shujimori watched in disbelief. Taking that attack head-on would be disastrous. He couldn't begin to fathom what Takia was planning. But he had a rule to faithfully follow the leader he had chosen. He decided to put his trust in Takia. With resolve, Shujimori grabbed Yurika's arm and pulled her toward a safe corner. She followed without hesitation. The wolf's powerful gale swept through the entire hall, instantly wiping out the lesser ghosts that still lingered in the area. Once the wind settled slightly, Yurika thanked Shujimori, her voice trembling. It was a close call and he had saved her. Her relief quickly turned to despair. She cried out that Takia was still out there, lost in the storm, and they had to find him. Shujimori gently stopped her from running out, reminding her that Takia had told them to stay put. He urged her to have faith in their leader, but Yurika looked out into the dust and wind, her face filled with worry, wondering if he could possibly be all right on his own. At last, the violent wind died down. Yurika asked if it was safe to look for him now, but Shujimori held up a hand, telling her to wait just a moment longer. Just then, a familiar voice called out through the quiet hall. Shujimori recognized it instantly. Without a second thought, both of them broke into a run, racing toward the sound of their friend's voice. As they reached the center of the hall, they called out Takia's name, their eyes searching through the lingering dust and smoke. When the dust finally cleared, Shujimori's eyes widened in surprise. Beside him, Yurika's jaw dropped, her mind refusing to process the scene before them. Takia stood completely unharmed next to the giant wolf, which now lay weakened on the ground, its health bar hovering at a mere 1%. Shujimori could only mutter a single word, incredible. Yurika let out a sigh of relief, admitting they had worried for nothing. Takia walked calmly toward the downed creature. This should be enough to trigger the secret mission, he said. It all clicked into place for Shujimori. Takia had risked everything not just to defeat the boss, but to unlock a hidden quest. Yurika's eyes sparkled with excitement at the mention of a secret mission. She thought the whole idea was incredibly cool. Takia stood over the defeated wolf, looking down at the massive beast. The white-furred creature let out a low, mournful howl as its eyes began to glow with a soft light. A surprise system window popped up in front of him. It asked if he would accept the boss, Ares, into his party. A smile spread across Takia's face as he said, "Of course," and pressed the button to accept. The system confirmed it. Ares had joined the party and the secret mission was now unlocked. With the mission complete, the system also began to list the rewards for clearing the boss floor. Among the rewards was a storage ring, an item that could hold countless objects but no living creatures. Holding the new ability cards in his hand, Takia Kurasu felt a sense of satisfaction. He could finally use these D-rank abilities. His status panel appeared, displaying his impressive power and speed. It also highlighted a permanent skill, Mental Guardian, which protected him from all psychic attacks. Wasting no time, Takia decided to use the new power cards immediately. His stats updated in real time. His power rose to level 13 and his stamina to level 12. He then considered the storage ring, thinking how much more convenient it would make their journey. Suddenly, a series of sharp barks broke his train of thought. He looked down to see the recently defeated creature yapping at him. In a flash of light, the giant wolf shrank down into a tiny, adorable puppy. Takia stared, wondering if this was its true form. His friends approached, their expressions a mix of shock and confusion. They asked if this cute little animal was really the same terrifying boss from moments ago. Takia nodded, confirming that it was. He cheekily offered to change it back if they didn't believe him. Yurika paled, terrified at the mere thought of the monster returning to its giant, fearsome form. Takia laughed and admitted he was only joking. The small puppy, he explained, was its real form. Shujimori adjusted his glasses, remarking that if all the bosses were like this, the creator of the dungeon must have been an idiot. Takia agreed, adding that the further they descended, the more of the game's strange darkness they would uncover. Hearing this, Yurika said that she was beginning to understand his true goal, to destroy this game entirely. The group then arrived at a digital portal, the gateway to the next floor, and prepared to continue their journey. But as they started down the stairs, a mysterious meow echoed up from the darkness below. Yurika recognized the sound as the cry of a cat. The group exchanged puzzled glances, wondering what could be waiting for them. In Yurika's arms, the small puppy began to bark furiously, its tiny body trembling. Takia's expression turned serious. He revealed that the sound was not a cat but the boss of the next floor. He glanced down at the barking pup, noting that it seemed eager to see an old friend. With that, he gestured for the others to follow him down. A system notification confirmed their location on the mansion's second floor, where the temperature was a harsh 10 degrees below zero. The air grew even colder. dropping another 2 degrees every minute as frozen monsters began to emerge from the shadows. In the middle of the icy hallway, the group stood face to face with these new, chilling enemies. The creatures resembled zombies, their bodies shambling and their eyes glowing with an unsettling purple light. Eureka observed that there were more of them now, and Takia confirmed her fear, explaining that the difficulty would only continue to rise. With a collective, guttural roar, the frozen enemies charged straight toward the small group of players. But Takia simply watched the approaching horde, a confident smile playing on his lips. Without a word, Shijimori instantly moved to the front. He dashed forward, a blue aura flaring around him as he prepared to meet the monsters head-on. He then unleashed a powerful wave of energy, sweeping away the first line of enemies in a single, decisive strike. He called back to Takia, telling him to conserve his strength for the main boss, just as his own status panel appeared for a moment. Takia watched the display, thinking to himself that even skilled players like Shijimori were getting stronger with every fight. Shijimori continued his masterful assault, moving with the fluid grace of his special martial art. He cleared a path through the monsters, telling his 2 companions to stay close behind him. Eureka watched in awe, amazed by how incredibly strong her new friend was. But Shijimori paused his attack, turning to Takia to ask if he knew where the boss was, since he was just clearing a random path. He then scratched his head with an awkward smile, admitting he had no idea which way to go. Taking advantage of his distraction, 2 monsters roared and leaped through the air, aiming for Shijimori's unguarded back. Eureka screamed in terror, warning him to watch out for the attack from behind. Sensing the immediate danger, Shijimori turned around with a panicked look on his face. The creature's claws were just inches away, and he cursed himself for letting his guard down so carelessly. But then he heard Takia's calm voice telling him to duck, and he recognized the command instantly. A brilliant beam of red energy shot just over his head, striking the 2 airborne monsters directly. With a few more quick energy blasts, Takia easily finished off the remaining enemies. The shadow of his powerful attack stretched across the wall as Eureka stared, amazed by his overwhelming strength. Shijimori thought to himself that his leader's power was truly on another level. Takia then told them it was time to move, as he knew exactly where the boss was waiting. He kicked a nearby door with such force that it flew open, sending the monsters inside sprawling onto the floor. The group stopped at the entrance to the room, where Takia announced they had found the floor's boss. The boss was a giant white cat named Pearls, whose stats showed immense power and incredible speed. Its red eyes glowed menacingly as the giant creature let out a furious meow. Eureka couldn't help but think the giant cat was actually very cute, a thought that made Shijimori wonder how she could possibly see it that way. Takia recalled that this particular boss was far too fast for a direct fight, not even he could outrun it. Because of its speed, he explained that they would need a different strategy to defeat it. He then turned to Eureka and asked if he could borrow her little puppy for a moment. Takia explained that Aries' cry could weaken former companions like the cat. He tasked his friends with handling the smaller monsters, telling them he would take on the boss himself. His 2 companions quickly agreed to the plan, assuring him that he could leave the other enemies to them. However, Shijimori was still worried about Eureka, who had no combat experience, even though she didn't seem afraid. Without any hesitation, Takia leaped into the center of the room to confront the enemies. The giant cat was already in a frenzy, furiously attacking the other monsters with its sharp claws and teeth. The smaller creatures noticed Takia's approach and swarmed together, trying to block his path to the boss. With his own eyes glowing red, Takia warned the monsters not to get in his way. He then drew his sword, cutting down the enemies with a series of swift and precise strikes. In a blur of motion, he advanced across the battlefield, giving his opponents no time to react. Takia then leaped high into the air, soaring toward the giant boss as he prepared his next move. The huge creature let out another furious meow, ready to face the young player in combat. He knew the boss's attack was about to begin, and that he had to stop its momentum before it could start. With that thought, Takia threw the small Aries toward the giant cat, ordering the puppy to cry. The puppy obeyed, letting out a powerful cry as its eyes glowed with a soft blue light. The sound wave struck the giant cat directly, which seemed to grow confused upon hearing the cry of its old friend. A system notification appeared, showing that Pearl's morale, speed, and power had all been reduced. Seizing the perfect opportunity, Takia prepared to deliver a final blow to the weakened boss. He unleashed a massive slash of red energy that shot straight toward the creature. The attack hit its target dead-on, creating a large explosion of crimson light. When the light faded, Takia stood over the fallen boss, which now had only 1% of its health remaining. With a serious expression, he said that everything was going according to plan and that it was time for the next step. Takia then looked down at the giant cat and asked Pearls if it wanted to join their team. The creature only growled in response, baring its sharp teeth with a furious look in its eyes. Just then, little Aries barked at its former companion, as if trying to convince it to agree. After a moment, the huge cat let out a low meow and seemed to finally give in. A system screen then appeared, asking the party to accept the boss as a new member, and Takia immediately agreed. Suddenly, a portal of swirling ice formed in front of them. Shijimori looked at it and asked if this was the way to the next floor. The group walked toward the shimmering portal, ready to face the final boss of the mansion. With a determined look, Takia Kurasu thought about the challenge ahead, knowing the first boss was an enemy that could not be defeated by normal means. As they descended deeper, the stone steps gave way to a vast ice cave. The air grew sharp and biting, and Yurika shivered, pulling her arms close as she complained about the sudden chill. Takia pulled out an enhancement core, his mind already calculating the best use for it. He knew that D-rank abilities were often limited, typically offering little more than a simple increase in damage. Even so, an upgrade was an upgrade. He decided to use the core, hoping to improve one of his existing skills beyond its current limitations. As he activated the core, his sword began to hum with power. An intense blue aura erupted from the blade, bathing the icy cavern in its brilliant light. A translucent system screen appeared before him, displaying the details of his lapis sigil. The sword's primary ability allowed it to absorb an opponent's health with every successful strike. Just as he was about to finalize the upgrade, a crucial detail he had completely overlooked suddenly surfaced in his mind. A new message flashed across the screen, confirming the core had been successfully consumed. His weapon, the lapis sigil, had officially leveled up. With this upgrade, his Chrono Slash ability evolved. Its damage output was no longer a fixed value but would now scale directly with his own strength. A satisfied smile touched his lips. The power increase felt great. With the first upgrade complete, he decided to check the new skill selection that had unlocked. Without a moment's hesitation, he reached out and pressed the on-screen button to choose a new ability for his sword. The system immediately responded, beginning the selection process for the weapon's second unique ability. His surroundings dissolved, and he found himself standing in a phantom space. A spectral sword floated before him, encircled by a ring of glowing, colored panels. He instantly understood the meaning of the display. Each color represented a different rank of ability, ranging from the common E rank to the legendary S rank. He focused his intent, preparing to choose the second skill for his lapis sigil from the options swirling around him. His hand shot out, moving directly toward a vibrant purple panel. A look of instant recognition flashed across his face as if he already knew what it was. Another system screen appeared, confirming his choice. The second unique ability had been successfully acquired. The new B+ rank skill, called Whirling Wind, was now permanently bound to the weapon. Its effect was simple yet powerful, increasing his speed by 5 whole levels whenever he wielded the sword. A pleased smile spread across Takia's face. In any fight, a significant boost to his speed would be an invaluable asset. Meanwhile, on the floor below, new enemies began to materialize. Hordes of D-rank monsters appeared, their frozen bodies looking stronger and more numerous than any they had faced before. Taking in the swarm of enemies, Yurika noted that the lowest floor was absolutely crawling with them. She knew she would have to fight. Shijimori urged them to keep up the pace. He knew that if Takia were to engage these monsters himself, the fight would be over in an instant, leaving no experience for them. Just then, Takia's voice reached them. He announced that he was going straight for the boss and that he was leaving these monsters for them to handle. Hearing this, Shijimori felt a familiar unease. It seemed they always ended up letting Takia handle the most dangerous parts of a dungeon by himself. But Takia quickly clarified his plan. He wasn't abandoning them, he was just going to lure the boss out. He told them to use this time to level up as fast as possible. Yurika watched her leader disappear into the darkness, a little surprised by his bold strategy. In a flash, a grotesque creature lunged from the crowd, its claws aimed directly for Yurika. Her companion cried out her name in a panic. But Yurika was not intimidated. She met the attack head-on, her fist connecting with a powerful crunch squarely in the monster's face. The sheer force of the impact sent the creature flying backward, tumbling through the air with no chance to even react. A serious, determined expression settled on her face as she turned to face the rest of the monstrous horde. A faint shimmer in the air revealed her status panel, which now displayed her new level, 6. "I'm much stronger than when I first got here," she yelled, her voice ringing with confidence. "I'll show you what I can really do." With that battle cry, she charged into the thick of the monsters. In her heart, she knew she had trained to gain this power for one reason: to protect the man she loved. Watching the scene unfold, Shijimori had a sudden realization. It was as if she had two different personalities, and this fierce, confident warrior only emerged when Takia was away. As he was lost in thought, one of the creatures saw an opening and leaped toward him, claws extended. But the fighter was not caught off guard. With a quick, precise movement, he settled into a combat stance, perfectly prepared for the attack. He calmly adjusted his glasses on the bridge of his nose. "I'm going to fight with everything I've got too," he declared. "I won't be left behind." He then turned to face the horde of enemies that was now swarming around him, their menacing roars filling the icy chamber. Their sharp teeth were bared and their purple eyes glowed with hunger, looking ready to devour him whole. Farther into the dungeon's depths, Takia stepped into a dark, cavernous chamber littered with bones. It felt like a graveyard, and the heavy, oppressive atmosphere would have been terrifying to a normal person. There, in the center of the macabre chamber, he finally found the final boss, a level 15 ice maiden with intimidatingly high stats. The boss slowly turned her head, her icy gaze fixing on him. She spoke, her voice like cracking ice, as she remarked on the rare sight of a living human in her domain. Takia recalled the information he had. There was a 50% chance of awakening the boss's dormant memories with a specific cry. A frightening, hungry look crossed the creature's face. "Fresh blood," she hissed with a cruel smile. "How sweet, I will have it for myself." Wasting no more time on words, the boss shot forward, charging at Takia with incredible speed to attack him. Now Takia ordered his two small companions. They responded instantly, letting out a powerful synchronized howl and meow. The strange sound wave struck the Ice Maiden head-on. For a moment, the glow in her eyes seemed to dim, but a system screen immediately informed him that the attempt to awaken her memories had failed. The failed attempt only seemed to enrage her. The boss unleashed a furious aura of purple energy as her power began to surge. Takia calmly reassured his pets, telling them it wasn't their fault. He admitted to himself that he hadn't really expected it to work on the first try anyway. Thirsty for blood, the creature lunged again. Takia threw himself to the side, rolling across the bone-strewn floor to narrowly dodge the attack. He knew he just needed to buy some time for his friends to grow stronger. He was already grateful for his new speed-enhancing skill, which made dodging her attacks far easier. Back on the previous floor, the last of the monsters had fallen. Shijimori took a breath and confirmed that they had dealt with all of them. His own status panel updated, showing he had reached level 11 and had gained a welcome boost to all his stats. Eureka, who had also leveled up, remarked that while the enemies were tough, the experience they gained was well worth the fight. Suddenly, a loud, rumbling sound echoed from the passage ahead. Eureka wondered aloud if their leader was already on his way back with the boss. At the mere thought of his return, her entire demeanor shifted. The fierce, battle-hungry warrior vanished, replaced by a calm, serene girl who clasped her hands in excitement, leaving her companions speechless at the sudden change. Just then, Takia burst into their chamber, running at full speed. Trailing right behind him was the floor's enraged boss. A bright smile lit up Eureka's face, and she joyfully called out her beloved leader's name. The enormous Ice Maiden was hot on his heels, her face a mask of pure, unrestrained fury as she chased him. Seeing the creature up close for the first time, both of his friends were stunned by the sheer size of the dungeon's final boss. Without breaking his stride, Takia shouted over his shoulder, "Turn around, we're heading for the floor above." The Ice Maiden let out a chilling laugh, gathering shards of sharp ice in her hands as she prepared to strike. Seeing the danger, Eureka offered to help, but Takia warned her that the creature was only after him and would not stop until he was caught. A system notification then appeared, confirming what he had said. The Ice Maiden had indeed locked her sights on Takia Kurasu. The icy creature floated in the air, her voice echoing as she demanded the human stop running. She wanted nothing more than to taste his fresh blood. Beams of ice shot out and he twisted his body, barely avoiding the relentless barrage that followed him. Watching from a distance, his friends could only marvel at his composure. Only Takia could remain so calm while being hunted like that. Suddenly, their path forward was blocked. More frozen creatures rose from the ground, cutting off any chance of escape. Takia understood at once. These smaller monsters would keep appearing as long as the main boss was still active. His two companions stepped forward, their faces set with determination. They declared they were no longer afraid and promised not to get in his way. With a single, powerful strike, the two of them met the horde head-on, forming a barrier to hold back the swarm of creatures. A sense of pride washed over the black-haired young man as he watched them. They had both grown so much stronger. Meanwhile, in another part of the building, a different group of players was struggling just to survive the cold and the endless monsters. One of them, a player with fiery red hair, managed to defeat one of the creatures with a single mighty punch. He turned to his friends with a wide grin, boasting that as long as he, the number one player, was around, they had nothing to fear. Suddenly, the ground began to shake with a steady rhythm. The leader of the group looked around, confused by the strange tremor. Looking up, they saw a figure rushing toward them at incredible speed, coming down the stairs from the floors above. The red-haired leader's eyes widened in shock. He couldn't understand it, as the main boss was supposed to be on the floor below them. His question was answered when the Ice Maiden herself appeared right behind the running figure, her glowing status panel radiating a thirst for blood. A wave of terror washed over the group. They realized the shaking was not an earthquake, it was the thundering presence of the final boss. Eureka didn't hesitate for a moment. She screamed at the other players to fall back if they didn't want to be completely wiped out. But the red-haired player just scoffed, still full of confidence. He declared that he was the best and would never back down from a boss. He stood his ground and shouted a challenge, but Takia simply dashed right past him, not slowing down for an instant. The Ice Maiden plowed forward, casually swatting the red-haired player's friends aside as if they were nothing. The massive creature continued on, passing the red-haired player who was now frozen in place, his bravado completely gone. A light graze from the boss's passing sent him stumbling to the ground. His friends rushed over, asking if he was all right. Takia called out to his own friends, telling them to leave the other group be. The boss would not attack anyone but him. As they moved higher, a system warning appeared. They had passed the middle floor and a new threat, mutant creatures, would now appear. Eureka asked if the bosses on the upper floors had secret rules. Takia explained that things up here were very different. He revealed the dungeon's secret. The boss on the top floor was the Ice Maiden's father, and the only way to clear it was to reunite them. He began to tell their sad story. The man upstairs had become a father on the very same day his wife had died, all because of a quack doctor. The daughter grew up healthy without a mother, finding comfort and friendship only in the company of her pets. But one day, as she was waiting for her father, a car struck her down right before his eyes. After their deaths, the cruel creators of the game had captured their souls, trapping them forever inside the building. That was why only players who understood their tragic story and could find a way to bring them together could free their souls. Reuniting the father and daughter was the one true path to clearing the dungeon and finally ending their suffering. His friend listened, his fists clenched in anger. He cursed the game's creators, calling them despicable for what they had done. Just then, a massive, twisted creature emerged from the shadows. The other players stared in horror at its immense power. A status window identified it as a D-rank boss. It was the quack doctor, the one responsible for so much pain. Takia's friends gasped in realization. This was the very same doctor from the tragic story he had just told them. Takia didn't waste a second. He drew his sword and shouted a sharp command for everyone to get down immediately. The other players looked up to see the horrifying shadow of the doctor looming over them, and they scrambled for cover. His sword blazed with a brilliant red light as he swung it, unleashing a powerful slash of energy that formed a perfect X in the air. The blast of energy struck the doctor head-on, giving the creature no time to defend itself. A system message confirmed the target had been destroyed. Without even a glance back, Takia turned and continued running up the stairs. The other players were left staring, completely speechless. They could only wonder who that incredibly powerful young man was. From the floor below, the Ice Maiden let out a furious scream, her relentless pursuit never slowing. Panic seized the group again as they saw the final boss from the lower levels appear right before their eyes. But the giant creature simply floated past them, her gaze fixed on the stairs ahead. She completely ignored them. They realized she had no interest in attacking them. It must have been that other player, they thought, who had lured her all the way up here. All replaced their fear. That mysterious player, they commented to each other, was on a completely different level. Their relief was short-lived as another boss materialized. A system panel identified it as a D-rank modified truck driver. Takia's friends watched in shock. His companion realized this must be the greedy driver whose carelessness had cost a young girl her life. Without wasting time, Takia leaped toward the new threat, telling his friends to stay back and be ready. The huge driver roared and drew back its fist, preparing to crush the boy with all of its might. But the young man dodged the blow with ease. He calmly told the monster that its attacks were far too slow to ever hit him. In a swift, fluid motion, he swung his sword once more, releasing another powerful slash of red energy. Again, the system confirmed the kill. Takia landed gracefully on the ground in a stylish pose, his attack a complete success. With a serious look, he announced that the top floor was next, and that they would clear it very soon. The trio then continued their journey, ascending the final flight of stairs in the dark and frozen building. From somewhere hidden in the shadows, a single mysterious eye watched their progress, noting that their speed was abnormally fast. As they arrived on the top floor, a new kind of monster awaited them. It was a level 10 mutant, unlike any they had faced before. A huge crowd of muscular, blue-skinned creatures stood in their way, completely blocking the path forward. Their menacing purple eyes and sharp teeth made it clear these monsters were far stronger than the ones they had fought earlier. Without a moment of hesitation, the group charged into the horde, cutting a path through the throng of enemies. He pointed towards a large door at the end of the hall, shouting to his friends that the final boss was just on the other side. Enraged, the creatures let out a deafening roar and chased after them with unstoppable fury. Seeing the relentless horde, the young hero urged his friends to go on ahead, telling them he would handle the rest of the monsters. He unleashed a powerful slash, sending a massive wave of red energy that wiped out all the remaining creatures in a single strike. Now that the path was clear, the black-haired man yelled again for his companions to hurry and go on without him. The force from his powerful attack was so strong that it pushed his two friends right up to the door of the final boss room. The two of them braced themselves, knowing that the top-floor boss was waiting for them just beyond the door. A system window appeared before them, confirming their entry into the final boss's chamber. Before them stood the boss, a giant D+ rank ice monster, its stats showing it was level 15. Its special skill was a freezing breath, an attack it could unleash whenever it pleased. His friends stared in shock. The boss looked nothing like what they had expected. Suddenly the heavy door slammed shut behind them. The girl's heart sank as she realized they were trapped. Another system message appeared, explaining that the door would only open once a player outside met a certain condition. Wasting no time, the massive ice boss charged forward, ready to attack the trapped duo. The fighter knew they had to fight with everything they had. Their only hope was to hold on until Takia could get to them. Back outside the room, a new mission appeared on Takia's screen. He had to defeat all the mutants on the floor within 5 minutes. He was surprised. This kind of timed event was supposed to happen only in much harder dungeons. Then he saw something strange, something that was not there in his past life. A sense of suspicion washed over him. Just then, a giant red eye opened in the darkness. The young man wondered if he was looking at an evil god. Takia steadied himself. 5 minutes, he said with confidence, was more than enough time to finish this. He realized that his return must have caused these changes. Even with his memories of the future, he knew he had to be careful. Not wasting another second, the hero rushed forward, his sword unleashing a flurry of red energy slashes. The black-haired young man moved like a blur, weaving between the massive blue creatures that filled the floor. But something was wrong. He noticed the monsters were trying to run away from him, and he realized their behavior had changed too. Even so, Takia knew they were no match for his speed. He leaped into the air, ready to strike them down. Suddenly, the boss from the previous floor appeared out of nowhere, grabbing him from behind with her giant hand. Caught completely by surprise, the protagonist could only stare with a look of pure shock on his face. The ice maiden who had been chasing him attacked with all her strength, giving him no time to defend himself. He gritted his teeth in frustration. This creature was getting in his way, and it was becoming a serious problem. The boss hissed that she would squeeze every drop of blood from his body as she prepared a powerful ice attack. A moment later, a massive crystal of ice formed around the hero, trapping him completely. The black-haired young man was now frozen solid, unable to move inside the boss's prison of ice. The creature peered at the ice, confused. She wondered where the fresh blood she craved had gone. Meanwhile, the clock was ticking. The timer for his mission now showed only 4 minutes and 22 seconds left. But then Takia Kurasu appeared high in the air above her, diving down to launch a surprise attack. He activated his skill, a level 2 time-running slash, channeling its power into his blade. With a powerful cry, the hero swung his sword, sending a massive strike of red energy down toward the enemy. The attack struck the ice creature directly, but it didn't seem to do very much damage. The boss simply smiled, realizing he had been hiding behind her the entire time, using the ice as a decoy. After his strike, the black-haired young man landed gracefully on the ground, already preparing his next move. He knew the boss wouldn't be defeated so easily, but this gave him the chance he needed to destroy the other monsters and open the door for his friends. The clock continued to count down. He now had only 4 minutes and 15 seconds left to complete his mission. His thoughts turned to his friends inside, facing the final boss whose strength was even greater than this ice maiden's. The protagonist yelled out for his friends to hold on a little longer before charging back into the fight. With less than 4 minutes on the clock, the young man knew he had to hurry if he wanted to save his companions. Meanwhile, inside the boss room, the man with glasses was sent flying by a powerful punch from the monster. The force of the blow threw him across the room, giving him no chance to defend himself. He cried out in pain as his body crashed hard against the frozen wall of the chamber. Lying on the ground, he thought about the boss's incredible speed. It was a level 15 and he just couldn't keep up. He suddenly wondered if this was the level of power that Toki Kurasu had been fighting with all this time. He had always thought the difference in their strength wasn't that great, but now he understood just how wide the gap truly was. The difference between being first in the world rankings and 32nd was far bigger than he ever imagined. Just then his friend rushed in, landing a powerful punch directly on the giant boss's face. She yelled at her companion to get up, reminding him that they had to hold on until their leader arrived. But the monster turned its attention to her, and the white-haired girl froze in terror as its giant hand reached for her. The huge boss grabbed her in its grip, and the girl screamed in pain while the monster let out a triumphant roar. But her friend quickly got to his feet, using his 8 trigrams palm technique to try and save her. He fired a blast of golden energy from his palm, which hit the monster's arm directly. The force of the attack made the giant creature pull its arm back in pain, forcing it to let go of the girl. Surprised by the sudden rescue, the young woman called out her companion's name. The man with the glasses declared that the difference in their power didn't matter. He would never give up. A system window then explained that in his current state, he could use his Kai to launch attacks from a distance. With a furious roar, the giant creature charged straight for the man with glasses. Unfazed, he met the creature's gaze with a serious expression, warning the beast not to underestimate him. He skillfully sidestepped the attack and countered with a powerful strike of energy to the enemy's chest. Before the beast could recover, he unleashed a rapid succession of golden energy blasts. The attack struck their target, setting off a series of explosions that engulfed the massive monster. He thought to himself how useful the special strength technique his father taught him was proving to be. A memory surfaced of his father, explaining that the Bagua palms were not meant for close-range combat. His master had revealed that by understanding the technique's true meaning, one could strike from a distance. He had to admit, however, that he was still far from completely mastering the method. He also remembered the pressing time limit. In his current state, the transformation would only last for 3 minutes. Suddenly, the ice boss let out a mighty roar, emerging from the smoke completely unharmed. Its wounds sealed themselves in an instant, and a chilling realization dawned on the fighter: this creature was invincible. Even so, he resolved that if he could not defeat the boss, he could at least delay it. With newfound determination, he fired another powerful blast of golden energy at the giant monster. The creature roared as the attack made contact, but this time the blow seemed to have no effect at all. Shock crossed his face as he wondered if the boss had already adapted to his palm's strength. The monster charged forward with incredible speed, and he chided himself for forgetting how fast it was. Bracing for the inevitable, he accepted that all he had left was to fight until the very end. He unleashed a massive explosion of golden energy in a desperate attempt to stop the enemy's advance. With the palm of his hand, he managed to hold the creature back, but the strain was clearly pushing him to his limit. His stamina finally gave out as a system notification informed him that his rage state had been deactivated early. A weary look fell upon his face as he realized the continuous effort had consumed all of his energy. Sensing its opportunity, the boss gathered a powerful ice breath to finish off the defenseless fighter. As the freezing attack rushed towards him, he couldn't help but wonder if this was how he would die. But just then, the sound of several gunshots interrupted the monster's attack. The bullets struck the boss directly, causing it to roar in a mix of pain and surprise. It was Eureka, a revolver in her hand. She declared that saving her companion was the most important thing right now. A system screen identified the weapon as an E-rank 6 shooter that consumed the user's stamina. He looked on in surprise, wondering how she had managed to get an item card like that. The giant creature roared furiously, turning all of its attention toward the white-haired girl. She promised she would hold on with him until their beloved leader arrived. Without hesitation, the young woman fired a volley of shots that hit the boss in several places, but the creature simply ignored the attacks and continued its advance. He yelled for his friend to run, explaining that the boss adapts to damage and could not be defeated. Shock rooted her to the spot as she saw the monster's giant hand closing in to grab her. With no time to react, she was violently slammed against the ground by the huge and powerful creature. An expression of pure fury crossed her face, showing she was unwilling to accept defeat. Even while trapped in its grasp, she continued to fire her gun, screaming for the giant monster to let her go. Suddenly, a beam of blue energy struck the boss squarely, knocking it away from her. The impact threw the girl aside, and her companion cried out her name in despair. Lying wounded on the ground, they both knew the monster was too strong for them to face alone. The boss recovered and prepared its ultimate ice breath to finish the pair once and for all. The man with glasses knew that if they were hit with a direct blow, it would certainly be over for them. Frozen with dread, he sighed with resignation and asked if his friend had any regrets. The powerful ice attack advanced, freezing everything in its path and giving the pair no chance to escape. The girl confessed that her only regret was not having left with Takia. In that moment, a blur of motion shot through the doorway in a flash. A swift slash cut through the freezing air, slicing the boss's powerful attack in two. The young woman's jaw dropped in disbelief as she apologized for the unexpected turn of events. The protagonist stood before them with his blade drawn, remarking that he never thought he would see her again in this life. With a grim look, he thought that if he had been even 1 second later, his two friends would have died. He announced that they were safe now, as the conditions to clear the dungeon had been met. But then the Ice Maiden reappeared, screaming for blood and readying an attack on the group. The giant monster, however, seemed confused, unable to comprehend what was happening around it. The Ice Maiden also seemed lost, her furious expression suddenly melting away. A system screen appeared, informing them that a secret condition to clear the dungeon had been fulfilled. With that announcement, the evil glow in the ice boss's eyes began to fade. The same thing happened to the giant monster, which also seemed to finally be calming down. The system confirmed that because the two bosses had met, the story to clear the dungeon had been released. Their monstrous forms began to dissolve, transforming into ethereal white spirits. The maiden returned to her human form and with tears in her eyes called out for her father. Her father also returned to normal, calling for his daughter with a happy expression. In an emotional reunion, the father and daughter finally embraced after being separated for so long. The system confirmed that the ending had been reached, implanting memories of the past directly into the hero. Witnessing the tragic scene, he silently cursed whoever was behind it all and swore he would make them pay. But the protagonist felt that something was not right, wondering why a new mission had just been activated. Suddenly, a giant red eye appeared in the sky, announcing that the Lord God was displeased with their speed. The world around the trio began to distort and break apart as if it were glitching. Eureka looked up in absolute terror, wondering what that horrible thing could be. A system screen flashed into existence, informing them that a boss-level mission had started and a scout of the gods had descended. A dark, shadowy creature with a wicked smile materialized before them. The dark entity explained that its sole duty was to satisfy and please its Lord God. A wicked smile grew on its face as it declared that the true spectacle was about to begin. Its voice dripped with malice as it announced that the real show was starting now. At its words, the father and daughter, who had just returned to their human forms, collapsed to the ground screaming in agony. Their bodies began to twist and change once more, reverting back into their monstrous appearances. The two giant ice bosses had returned, their purple eyes glowing with a terrifying fury. The man with glasses stared in shock, wondering how this was possible when they had already defeated them. Not understanding the danger, the two small pets ran towards the towering monsters they still saw as their masters. His friend cried out in despair, screaming for the little animals to come back before it was too late. The dark entity watched them, remarking that they too would become an offering for its god. The glasses immediately understood what it meant to do. He shouted that they could not let the creature transform the pets. Without hesitating, Takia Kurasu charged forward, his glowing sword raised to stop the enemy's advance. The white-haired girl watched the chaotic scene unfold, her expression frozen in shock. The entity turned its attention to the hero, noting that it was always him interfering with its god's entertainment. The protagonist realized this dungeon was far more complicated than he had first thought, and only now did he truly notice the creature's watchful eye. He observed that the creature had no level or health bar, it wasn't even registered as a hostile monster. He could not recall anything like this from his past life. As he tried to process this, the entity ordered its monsters to destroy him. Receiving their command, the two giant bosses turned their immense bodies to attack the hero. He yelled for his friends to rescue the pets, telling them he would deal with the monsters. With that, the protagonist readied himself for battle, his sword igniting with a red glow. He wasted no time, launching himself at full speed toward the two colossal enemies. The young man unleashed a powerful strike of energy, sending it crashing against the giant ice bosses. He knew he couldn't take them down for good, but he could cut them up to buy his friends more time. To his surprise, health bars suddenly appeared above the monsters, showing they were taking damage from his attack. The protagonist was confused. He could not understand why they were suddenly losing health. A system screen then appeared before them, announcing the start of Phase 2 and issuing a new mission to the group. His friends stared in shock at the objective, wondering what it meant to extinguish the boss souls. The dark entity explained that the meaning was literal. Their mission was to completely destroy the souls within the monsters. It added that they were once humans who offered their souls to a god, so there was no issue in destroying what was left of them. The creature then turned to the protagonist, smiling as it called him an anomalous player. With a serious expression, Takia Kurasu faced the evil entity, ready for whatever it planned to do next. His friend was outraged, shouting that the creature was a disgrace for turning the tragic fate of these people into a game. But the being of shadows simply replied that all of this was done to satisfy the will of its god. It pointed toward the sky, explaining that its god was watching them and that the show must go on. The white-haired girl said she didn't care about any god and fired her weapon at the creature, telling it to stop the mission. However, the evil entity stopped the bullet in midair, catching it effortlessly between two of its fingers. With a mocking smile, the creature told her that power of such a low level could never harm it. The man with glasses was stunned, wondering just how powerful a being with no stats could be. The protagonist watched closely, confirming that the entity had indeed caught the bullet with its bare hand. Meanwhile, the two giant monsters suddenly turned on each other and began to fight furiously. Seeing this, the black-haired young man moved to intervene in the battle between the bosses. But he hesitated, realizing that to draw his sword now would mean destroying their souls as the mission commanded. He thought of how they were once just a father and daughter who had only ever wanted a moment of happiness. Just then, the black-haired young man noticed something unexpected, and a look of shock crossed his face. The huge ice monster had started to cry, with bright blue tears streaming down its frozen face. In that moment, Takia Kurasu understood. The creatures were not just fighting, they were in pain and crying out in suffering. Faint, ghostly images of the father and daughter appeared before him, their spirits begging him to end it all. The hero instantly recognized their voices and knew this was a plea for help from their trapped souls. Through tears, the girl's spirit told him that they could not bear to live like this anymore. Her father's spirit also pleaded with the protagonist to please end the pain they were feeling. One of the giant monsters let out a roar of pure agony, a sound that expressed all of its suffering. Hearing the spirit's pleas, the black-haired young man's expression hardened as he finally made a decision. The daughter's spirit explained that they no longer wanted to live a pathetic life, hurting others against their will. The female creature also roared in desperation, a cry for everything to finally be over. The entity of shadows watched the tragedy with a smile and said, "This show is what the god wants." The evil being laughed, adding that turning beauty into pain and hope into despair was the most entertaining thing of all. Takia promised the two spirits that he would be the one to help them break free from their nightmare. But first, he turned and fired a powerful beam of red energy directly from the tip of his sword. He announced that before freeing them, he was going to take care of a certain scoundrel first. With his eyes glowing red, he declared that he would punish the one responsible right in front of them. The entity was startled and demanded to know what he was doing, but the hero simply stated that it wasn't immortal either. The red energy attack sliced the dark creature directly down the middle without mercy. In shock, the entity questioned how he could have possibly known that it could be killed. Takia Kurasu then declared that sooner or later, he would defeat its god as well. He yelled for the creature to go to the underworld and wait for them there. As its body split in two, the entity let out a final, desperate call for its god to save it. A huge explosion of red energy then erupted, completely engulfing the entire area in a blinding light. The being of shadow let out a final shriek, unable to believe it had been defeated by a mere human. With one last, brilliant flash of light, the powerful attack completely erased the creature from existence. His friends watched in amazement, remarking that a victory like this was only to be expected from their leader. But Takia's expression suddenly grew serious. He warned them that the danger was not over yet, something else was still there. From the lingering smoke, a new voice spoke. It sounded amused that its subordinate had been taken out by what it called a toy. Yuriko was startled by the voice and asked what this other thing was that their leader had sensed. Shijimori was also confused. He was sure they had already defeated the creature they had been fighting. A new entity began to emerge from the shadows. It was much larger and more intimidating, and it looked down on them as if the whole situation was absurd. The gigantic being glared at them with pure fury in its eyes, stating that their actions had made it furious. Yuriko was frozen in terror, wondering where this massive new creature could have possibly come from. Shijimori grunted, complaining about the immense pressure in the air that was making it hard for him to breathe. The young hero stepped forward to face the new threat. He calmly asked if it was going to fight them too. The new entity revealed that the rules of its god prevented it from attacking them inside this particular dungeon. However, it warned the hero to remember its face, promising that the next time they met, it would put on a grand show for its god. The creature then told him to live well until he was worthy of their next meeting, and with that, it vanished. His friends could finally breathe again as the heavy pressure lifted. They all commented on how terrifying that being was. Takia realized that the evil god's interference was growing stronger, and that creature must have been its spokesperson. Feeling the god's eye watching him, he swore to himself that he would follow this path to the end and take them all down. He then turned his attention back to the two ice bosses who were still standing motionless in front of him. The spirits inside the bosses thanked him for getting rid of the dark entity and asked to finally be set free. His sword began to glow with a brilliant red light as the young man prepared to grant the souls their request. He then charged forward, unleashing a powerful strike of energy directly at the two ice monsters. As he moved, he promised them he would end their suffering in the most painless way possible. With a single, precise slash, his sword passed cleanly through both ice bosses at the same time. The monsters' frozen bodies immediately began to dissolve into thousands of tiny, golden particles of light. From within the light, the human forms of a father and daughter appeared, floating gently in the air. With warm smiles on their faces, the two spirits thanked Takia for finally helping them find peace. They held each other in a final embrace, relieved to at last be free from their endless suffering. The young man said his goodbyes, wishing them good luck in whatever life might come next for them. His companions watched with solemn relief, agreeing that it was all over and this was the best possible ending for them. Suddenly, the two small pets that had been with them also began to glow with an intense light. The little animals floated up and began to dissolve, prompting their friends to scream their names in despair. The pets let out one last, soft meow and bark before they disappeared completely. Eureka and Shijimori fell to the ground, whispering their final goodbyes and wishing for them to be happy in the next life. A system notification then announced that the D-rank dungeon had been cleared, and reward calculation had begun. Takia observed that the dungeon was finished, noting that the scenery around them was starting to collapse. The reward was an all-attribute activation card, and it was confirmed that all items could be taken back to the real world. Elsewhere, another group of players struggled against the cold and the monsters, wondering if they were going to make it out alive. One of the frozen creatures roared furiously, its piercing purple eyes glowing in the darkness. The group ran in desperation, and one of them shouted about how the number one player could have possibly cleared this dungeon so easily. At that moment, a heavy footstep landed on a piece of ice, breaking it with a loud crack. The red-haired player tripped over the shattered ice and fell to the ground with a startled cry. His friends looked back and screamed his name in despair as they saw their leader fall. Without wasting a moment, the ice monster charged forward to attack the defenseless player on the ground. He was terrified, thinking this was his end and that he had failed to become number one in the world. But suddenly, a system screen appeared right in front of him, announcing that the dungeon had been cleared. The red-haired player stared at the screen in disbelief as particles of light began to fall all around him. A look of pure relief washed over his face as he celebrated the news, realizing they had barely survived. His friends also began to celebrate, wondering what powerful player had managed to clear the dungeon. The screen then updated to show that Takia had an 82% contribution score, far above anyone else. The other players were astonished by the percentage. They couldn't help but wonder if the first-place player was even human. Back with Takia's group, the activation card took effect, raising all their attributes like strength, agility, and stamina to level 3. Takia's companions were impressed, feeling the immense power boost the reward had given them. Eureka's status panel was revealed, showing she was now level 9 and detailing the weapon she used in battle. Shijimori's panel also appeared, displaying his level 11 status and a secret family martial art. Takia then explained that the basic reward was complete, and that the individual reward distribution would now begin. For her 7% contribution, the girl received tribute cards and a sum of player points. But Eureka complained that the mana cards she had received were completely useless to her. Meanwhile, Shijimori, with nearly 11%, was given a new pair of gloves and an agility attribute card. Shijimori looked at the gloves he had received with curiosity, wondering what special effect they possessed. A screen then revealed that the E-rank gloves had a 3% chance to deal double damage on a hit. Excited by the news, Shijimori thought that if the effect activated at the right moment, it could decide a fight. His friends then turned to Takia, asking what kind of reward he got for such a high contribution. The protagonist simply replied that it was just a few points and a card fragment. However, he then revealed the item. It was a fragment of a powerful S-rank card glowing with a brilliant light. A notification from the system confirmed his reward, an S-rank fragment and over 4,000 contribution points. His friends looked on, confused. They found the reward strange and questioned the system's logic for giving it out. Takia just smiled. He admitted that it might look like a poor prize at first glance, but he assured them it was actually quite fair. He went on to explain that only 15 S-rank cards existed in the entire game, making them incredibly rare and difficult to get. A shadow passed over his face as he recalled his past life. To gain his own freedom, he had been forced to pay a terrible price. That memory was exactly why he knew getting an S-rank fragment this early, in only the second stage, was a stroke of unbelievable luck. It made Takia consider that even though the evil gods ran the game, its rules were surprisingly fair to all players. He carefully stored the fragment away, a quiet determination settling in. He was now one step closer to his true goal, destroying the gods. As the dungeon concluded, the final leaderboard appeared. Takia's name was at the very top, in first place with a massive lead. Eureka's eyes lit up with excitement when she spotted her own name on the contribution list, thrilled to have made the cut. Nearby, Kento adjusted his glasses, noting how close the rankings were. He had managed to place 31st. Takia pointed out that as more people understood the rules, more skilled players would rise through the ranks. This made Kento worry about the growing competition. But Takia wasn't concerned. He revealed that his true goal was to save the world, and for that, the more powerful allies he had, the better. This wasn't just his personal battle, he told them. It was a crisis that threatened the survival of all humanity. Looking at his friends, he urged them to set aside their personal interests and fight for the future of the human race. His words struck a chord. Inspired, both Eureka and Kento agreed, promising to dedicate themselves to the fight for humanity's survival. Their pact sealed, Takia bid his comrades farewell, telling them he would see them again very soon back in the real world. His two companions smiled and nodded in agreement as their forms dissolved into shimmering pixels, leaving the virtual space. Back in the real world, Takia's eyes fluttered open. A woman with dark hair was watching over him, waiting for him to wake. She called his name softly, relieved. "You're finally awake," she said. He simply nodded, confirming he was back. A serious expression settled on his face as his mind worked to process everything that had just happened inside the dungeon. He thought about the strange nature of the game, how it pulled a person's consciousness into its world, leaving physical items behind and useless. Seeing him awake and thoughtful, his mother gently asked if he was hungry, offering to make him something to eat. A small smile touched his lips. He realized his mother had come to terms with the bizarre situation and the game hadn't broken her spirit. Just then, a system notification flared to life in his vision, congratulating him on his first-place victory and announcing an extra reward. He reasoned that his score must have been so high that no one else could possibly beat it, which was why the reward was being given out ahead of schedule. In that instant, a dark energy swirled around him, and from it, a mysterious card slowly materialized in the air. The black card hovered before him, pulsing with a dark purple aura that seemed to absorb the light around it. Takia's eyes widened in surprise. He recognized it immediately. It was a class change card. The card's details became clear. Apprentice Shadow Mage, a powerful A-rank class. A memory from his past life surfaced. He had seen this class before, wielded by a man who had used its power to destroy an entire city. Even though that user had been consumed by evil, Takia knew the class's incredible power was undeniable. He reflected that a class itself was neither good nor evil. It was simply a tool, and its purpose was defined by the one who used it. With that thought, he made a decision. Since he couldn't use the card himself, he would have to find a worthy master for it. Just then, his mother's voice called out, telling him to come and eat. She had prepared his favorite noodles for him. He smiled warmly and thanked her, deciding to put his heavy thoughts aside for a moment to enjoy this simple piece of his everyday life. Sitting at the table with his mother, he took a bite and told her how delicious the food was, savoring the peaceful moment with her. Suddenly, a sharp knock echoed from the front door. Both he and his mother turned, wondering who could be visiting at this hour. His mother stood up from the table and walked toward the entrance to open the door and see who was there. She opened the door, her eyes widening in surprise as Eureka rushed past her into the room. His mother was confused about why the girl had shown up. Takia was just as surprised to see his teammate appear so unexpectedly at his home. In a panic, the girl grabbed his arm, her voice filled with desperation. She asked him why her parents had suddenly fallen into a coma. His expression turned grim. He had to tell her the hard truth. They were trapped inside the confinement game. An image of her parents lying still in their hospital beds flashed through her mind. She looked at him, pleading, and asked if there was any way to save them. Takia gently asked her to calm down, but his words offered little comfort. He explained that as things stood, there was no way to get them out. He revealed that the only known way to escape the game was to use a legendary S-rank card known as Freedom. He continued his grim explanation, telling her that dying in the game meant the person's mind would be trapped in an eternal coma, lost forever. Tears welled up in Eureka's eyes as the weight of his words sank in. She asked again, her voice trembling, if there was truly no other way. For a long moment, Takia remained silent, his expression heavy. He seemed unsure of what to say. He closed his eyes, a thought forming in his mind. He could give the class change card to Eureka. Then he opened his eyes and surprised her by saying that there was, in fact, another way. He reached into his pocket, pulled out the dark card, and held it out to her. He told her she needed to get stronger. Eureka stared at the card, her mouth falling open in disbelief. She couldn't believe what she was seeing and hearing. Takia explained that their new goal was simple. They had to become strong enough to defeat the very creators of the game. Eureka wondered aloud if the card he had given her was all she needed to become stronger. Takia confirmed that it would grant her power, but his face grew serious. He warned her there was a catch. He revealed the true danger of the card, explaining that she could lose her mind in the process. If her determination wasn't strong enough, she would be reduced to nothing more than a mindless tool for the evil gods. Surprised by this revelation, she questioned how a simple class card could possess such a terrible side effect. He explained that any gift from the evil gods always came with a hidden malicious purpose. He knew that while the class change was a great opportunity, it also held the potential for the deepest despair. Within each of the cards, a small piece of an evil god's consciousness was sealed away. For any normal human, contact with such a power could cause a mental collapse from which they could never recover. Once their mind was broken, they would fall under the god's control, becoming just another one of its loyal servants. He then began to explain why he himself had not been affected by that same dark influence. The suffering he endured in his past life had forged his heart into something as hard as steel. Ever since then, his life had been guided by a single, unwavering goal: to defeat them all. Eureka's expression hardened with resolve as she thought about her parents. If she didn't get stronger, they would never wake up. With her family in mind, the white-haired girl told him she understood the risks and was ready to try. Her mind made up, Eureka reached for the card, but Takia's mother suddenly grabbed her hand, stopping her. The older woman tried to reason with her, saying she was too young to be making such a rash decision. But Eureka simply thanked her, explaining that if he could risk his life for what he believed in, then so could she for the family she loved. His mother was stunned by the powerful determination she saw in the young girl's eyes. She slowly let go of Eureka's arm and wished her luck on the difficult path she had chosen. Eureka then turned to Takia with a final, serious request. If she became a monster, he had to end her life without hesitation. At that moment, a voice announced that the class change to Apprentice Shadow Mage had begun. Clutching the card, she said she was counting on him as a wave of dark energy began to swirl around her. He watched her, thinking about her grim request. He knew in his heart he could never do such a thing. A terrible image from a past vision flashed in his mind, a monstrous Eureka screaming for him to run. As the dark energy began to consume the white-haired girl, he made a silent promise that he would bring her back. A terrible scream of pain escaped her lips. Her eyes turned a ghostly white as the dark power overwhelmed her completely. The sinister energy then exploded outward, filling the entire room with its heavy, oppressive force. From the doorway, his mother cried out in fear, asking what was happening to her. He ordered his mother to leave the room at once, and to keep everyone out until he said it was over. With a grim look, he realized that the evil god's consciousness had already begun its invasion of her spirit. He knew he needed to fight it on a mental plane, but he didn't have any abilities like that. Looking inward, the hero called out for the powerful spiritual being that lived inside his own body. A dark entity appeared, noting that such an invasion was only natural, as those evil spirits were everywhere. He asked the entity to send him into her mental world. The being agreed, but warned him that once inside, he would be on his own. The dark entity added that if he failed to defeat the invader, his own mind would be destroyed in the process. But Takia's face was filled with confidence. He stated firmly that he would not perish, he would win. The being of shadows seemed pleased by his resolve and agreed to send him into the mental battle. The entity declared that if he couldn't resolve this, he wasn't worthy of its help. At its words, a blue light began to glow from Takia's chest. With that, a beam of pure blue energy shot out from his body at high speed. The beam of energy flew across the room and struck the girl who was being consumed by darkness. Now as a spirit, the hero declared that the god's consciousness would not have his friend. His soul then plunged into Eureka's mental world to aid her in the internal battle. He found himself floating in a dark, empty place, realizing he had made it inside his friend's mind. In the distance, the black-haired young man spotted a line of shadowy figures moving through the darkness. He looked closer, wondering if he was seeing the soul of his teammate. But to his surprise, he saw two versions of Eureka, fighting bravely against several shadow monsters. The protagonist was confused by the bizarre scene, wondering why there were two of her. An evil voice echoed through the void, telling her to prove her strength and survive the attack. As the number of enemies grew, the two girls encouraged each other, shouting that they had to win for their parents. The horde of dark creatures let out a terrifying roar and charged at full speed toward the two of them. The monsters then fired several spheres of dark energy directly at the girls. The purple orbs of energy flew through the air at high speed, ready to strike their targets. The fighter version of Eureka warned that a direct hit from those attacks would be the end for them. The other Eureka pulled out her revolver and asked her other half to create an opening for her. The evil consciousness laughed, again telling her to show her worth by surviving the assault of its creatures. Suddenly, the protagonist appeared with his glowing sword, announcing that he was there to help them in the battle. The two versions of the girl were left completely speechless, unable to believe he had found a way to get in there. He explained that the dark creatures were only illusions and that they had to be the ones to defeat them. But the young man continued he could help them deal with the true enemy, the evil god's consciousness that was controlling everything. He wasted no time, charging forward as several slashes of blue energy erupted from his sword. A furious expression crossed his face. In this life, he would not allow them to corrupt his friend ever again. "Don't you dare," he yelled, unleashing a furious storm of swift strikes against the dark creatures. The girls watched in surprise, wondering how he had managed to get there so fast. It was clear the smaller enemies were no match for him. Her fighter self told her other half to let Takia handle the lesser foes. They needed to focus on the three main spellcasters. As if hearing her, the three larger shadow mages began to chant, gathering a powerful dark energy attack. The swirling shadows condensed above them, forming a single, pulsating point of destructive energy. "Look out, it's coming for us," the one with the gun yelled in a desperate warning. A huge sphere of dark energy shot toward them. "Dodge," her other half screamed. With a look of pure shock, she was pulled to safety by her other half at the very last second. The orb hit the ground where they had stood, devouring it completely. They finally understood that Takia had not been exaggerating about this class's power. Before they could recover, several more dark orbs appeared out of thin air, surrounding the two cornered girls. They had no time to react. The orbs slammed into them, the force of the impact throwing them a great distance. As they lay on the ground, they painfully realized the difference between the slow, charged attacks and these instant ones. The gun-wielding girl pushed herself to her feet. "We can't just keep taking hits," she said through gritted teeth. "We have to fight back." She raised her weapon and fired at one of the shadow mages to test its defenses. The creature's health bar appeared, but the number was disheartening. The attack had only dropped its health to 85%. She stared in shock. She had fired twice, yet only managed to deal 15% damage. Their defense was far too high. "Any damage is better than none," her other half said, getting up beside her. "Let's try a new tactic. One dodges, the other attacks." They put the plan into motion, dodging the endless barrage of orbs. But the strategy was much harder than it sounded, and it was draining their energy fast. She realized with a sinking feeling that her physical fitness in this world was the same as in reality. If her stamina ran out, they would lose. To make matters worse, she discovered that reloading her gun also consumed stamina, putting her at an even greater disadvantage. Knowing their time was limited, the two of them knew they had to seize every single opportunity if they were going to win. Meanwhile, Takia noticed that the smaller monsters had gathered together, but they seemed afraid to advance on him. A serious look settled on his face. "So you won't come to me," he said quietly. "Then I'll come to you." His sword ignited with blue light as he charged headfirst into the horde of creatures. As he closed the distance, the shadow creatures panicked and began to retreat from his overwhelming presence. Suddenly, the smaller monsters stopped running and began to flow together, their shadowy forms merging into a single, larger mass. "Running is useless," he declared, his voice cold. "As evil gods, every last one of you must be eliminated." He swung his blade, unleashing a massive wave of energy that flew straight for the growing creature. The attack hit its mark, but as the light faded, a look of surprise washed over the young man's face. The monsters had fully merged into a single, giant beast. It stared him down, its terrifying mouth full of razor-sharp teeth. His surprise quickly faded. "So this is its true form," he noted. "I suppose a god's consciousness wouldn't be so weak." The giant creature glared at him with pure hatred, ready for the final battle to begin. Undaunted, the young man simply readied his sword and charged forward to meet his foe. His eyes began to glow with a menacing red light. He was done holding back. "Weak or strong," he said as his sword met the creature's hide, "it makes no difference." The shadow monster's expression twisted in what looked like surprise at the incredible power behind the blow. His blade now glowed with the same crimson energy as his eyes. "To me," he continued, "it's all the same." He unleashed a final, massive slash of energy that was so bright it illuminated the entire dark space. The powerful red attack sliced the giant creature clean in half, giving it no chance to defend itself. As the monster's remains faded away, a mysterious voice echoed in the silence, congratulating him. He looked around for the source, but soon realized it was not a sound he was hearing with his ears. He understood that it was more like a radio wave, being converted directly into a language his mind could comprehend. The voice explained that the S-rank card was a chance for humanity to resist, a tool they had created with their power. It ended with a grave warning, telling him not to be deceived by the gods or become their accomplice. Takia considered the message, a chance to fight back, but what if the S-cards were just another trap created by the same evil gods who started this game? He wondered about the beings behind the voice. Perhaps they were from other civilizations, ones that had already been destroyed in the past. He had once believed the S-cards were a power that even the gods could not control. Now he knew he had been wrong. He made a silent promise to whoever had sent the message. He would seize the opportunity they had left behind, and he hoped they were watching from space. With a look of hardened resolve, Takia Kurasu spoke to the empty void. This planet will be the end of the evil gods. His spiritual form began to flicker and fade. I can't stay in her mental world any longer, his voice echoed. At the same time, the two versions of Eureka ran together, having seemingly defeated their own final opponents. Takia's fading spirit appeared before them. He told them they were strong enough now to handle things on their own. You're leaving already? One of them asked. The other marveled at how strong he was, having solved the problem so easily. He simply said goodbye, telling them to focus on completing the class change so they could all meet again soon. The two girls looked at each other in confusion. They wondered why he had referred to them as if they were two separate people. They concluded that he couldn't possibly know their secret, which meant they would have to be very careful with their disguise in the real world. Suddenly, a large sphere of dark energy materialized in front of the two white-haired girls, blocking their path forward. Their expressions hardened with resolve. To save their parents, they first needed to pass this test and become apprentice mages. Without a word, they both charged forward, attacking the final dark sphere together as one. As his spirit vanished, a faint smile touched his lips. He hoped she would conquer the gods and become a truly reliable ally.